if you were to dedicate your life to one thing, what would it be?
To remove the barriers that hold people from living to their full potential. Now, with hindsight, I was raised in poverty. There is no sugarcoating. I had my own bed first time in high school.
Hey.
Boarding. That's the first time I had a blanket that was mine. Things worth having in life are built. They're not bought.
In this episode, I hang out with Saya Jackson. Saya is a world-renowned speaker who helps people and organizations adapt to life's transitions without losing their values, vision, and voice.
Mothers in our days didn't joke. My mom had 5 kids in 6 years. My parents were very intentional in raising us to look out for each other. You couldn't walk back from school by yourself if another sibling was still in school.
We talk about his childhood, the tough moments he's faced, and how those experiences shaped the way he thinks and built his resilience.
So when I'm writing books, I'm writing normally from the struggles. A decade ago, which is when I wrote When the Grass is Green on the Other Side, was because a lot of my peers at that point were getting to finish their 20s and getting ready for their 30s. And there was that realization like, hey, wait, maybe life is better on the other side. And then there's a part of me that sees my eyesight problem almost the way Paul saw the thorn in his flesh. Therefore, everything I have achieved to this point, I graduated with first class honors, top of my class, I got a scholarship and all of those. None of those can therefore be attributed to me, especially in my condition. I may have done my part, but there's a divine power that's responsible.
I learned something new from every guest on this show. And with Saya, it felt like every sentence was a very important lesson. This conversation is one you don't want to miss. Listen in.
In this age and time when people have normalized, say, divorce, because they feel some other partner is more attractive, you're thinking about moving countries before you immigrate. Maybe your child is really wired to be an artist and you've seen bioengineering like you are in as a more greener thing. So before you push them there, just think about the leaf and apply it to your kid. Lest you arrive in what you imagined to be green and you only realize, wait, it also needs work.
To start off here, Saya, maybe I want to understand who you are. So if you were to plant me in your earliest context, and I wanted to understand that context, what are the roots that define the adult that is seated next to me today?
Faith, family, education. When I look at the 3 things that, funny enough, those 3 things spell the word EFF. This is no shout to Malema. Yeah,
okay.
But we're having a similar conversation with my siblings not too long ago.
Yeah.
And I think the things that distinguished us from or shaped us from like our immediate environment were actually those three things: education, faith, and family. So to be specific, I'm the 4th born in a family of 6. Mothers in our days didn't joke. My mom had 5 kids in 6 years. Yeah, it's a conversation I've not been able to have with her, but I'm like, you're the person. So naturally, so what that does is, we are very close, both in age and in space. And then now with hindsight, I was raised in poverty. There is no sugarcoating. We were raised in poverty. Look around you. You see this setup we have? That is the size of the house I grew up in.
Oh, okay. For context of the people watching this house is probably what? That's 8 feet by. So how far do we go this?
So it's 10 by 10. Our house was 10 by 10. 10 by 10. Like this total sitting room up to there is bigger than the house I grew up in. All 6 of us. I mean, all 8 of us when you had the 2 parents.
Yeah.
I'm therein.
Did you have house helps too?
Yeah, though growing up, we used to have house helps, though we reached a certain age.
So in the 10 by 10, the house help
Yeah,
was
there was a
living
house
there
help, and this is also an African setting where
Yeah.
there was that relative or
Visiting.
cousin or visiting or who you is doing something who's around. So at any one time, the house had a minimum of 10 humans.
too. Yeah.
Yes. So long-term effect of things like that is I really know how to sleep on very small spaces.
Okay.
So slept on a decker. My parents were on the lower side of the decker. The boys used to sleep on the upper side. So 3 of us in one bed. Yeah. So this thing of everyone in their bed. I had my own bed first time in high school.
Hey.
Boarding. That's the first time I had a bed that was mine, a blanket that was mine. So we'd sleep 3 guys, share a blanket. My big bro would sleep on one end, me on the other end, our small bro in the middle.
Okay.
Then you, of course, as brothers, you always tagging. So
Fighting for the blanket.
Yeah.
and
So
bedsheets.
the guy in the middle was a lucky one because he was never uncovered as the two.
Were you in the middle?
No.
You're on the end.
I'm on the end. So I have a big bro, then I follow my big bro, then there's our kid bro. So
Okay, I
in
see.
sleeping order,
Yes.
my small bro is the one in the middle.
Yeah.
Then my big bro on one side, me on the other. I'm on the other side.
Okay.
Yeah,
And
so
would I imagine here that maybe you never had the blanket most of the time? The two of, your bigger brother would pull the blanket to his side.
You'd put up a good fight.
Okay.
You'd put up a good fight. You'd probably be holding it by your tip, but sleep is a good levelizer. When sleep catches up on him, you pull it on your end a bit more.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So you are 5 siblings.
6.
6 siblings.
Yes, we're 6 siblings. 3 boys, 3 girls.
Okay.
Yeah. So born in
And
a
so
family.
the 6 children are born in 5 years, you said?
The first 5 were born in
Okay.
6 years, and all of us total were born in 9 years. From firstborn to lastborn is in a span of 9 years.
Okay.
Yes.
And I feel like this doesn't put you in much difference in terms of, growing up together. Now that you're adults, you're kind of like age mates.
Yeah,
I would say that.
Yes, like my oldest sister is just 4 years older than me.
Yeah.
So you're basically in similar stations of life at any point, which is an advantage in the sense your siblings are literally your friends. Because what happens when you have to be in such a small space, so many people, is you need to learn how to communicate, tolerate, resolve things very quickly because, hey, we don't have too much space for you to fume within and blow a gasket all the time. So you learn how to compromise and get going fairly quickly. And then when my parents were very intentional in raising us to look out for each other. You, in fact, you get into problems for not doing that. So you couldn't walk back from school by yourself if another sibling was still in school. You waited for them and came back together. So I think that begins showing in the family side. So for better, for us, your guys in this space, you need to survive. Yeah. So I was saying, like, yeah, I was raised in poverty.
Yeah, you're gonna come back. You're raised in poverty, and I want to point you to something that I think was interesting to me. So the three boys were flying. I think we used to say they were flying.
Okay. Different slang. Yes, as guys, yes. You're just on the upper decker. Oh,
Yeah.
you're curious about how this sleeping arrangement works.
Yeah.
So we're in a 10 by 10, okay? So you can picture that,
Yeah.
10 by 10. One side of the wall has a decker.
Okay.
Has a decker and a curtain.
Yeah.
And then the tail, because beds are 6 feet long, the remaining 4 feet at the end of the bed has a cupboard that is pushed in, the doors facing towards you. On top of it are some shelves. On top of it are shelves where some suitcases can be put, and on top of the cupboard is some more space you can put stuff. So the remaining space between the cupboard and the edge of the bed, that's a kitchen.
Yeah.
So the kitchen was literally in front of the cupboard.
So you wake up and step into the...
No, why would you step? No, you see, if it's this long, think about it this horizontal like this. So the kitchen is at this remaining 4 feet here. So when you alight, you're walking, there's a table down here. Now on this other side of the wall, I don't know if the right one is adjacent, there's a...
So for context, I'm going to draw this here.
Yes.
So you can see this, right?
Yes, I can.
Okay, so this is a 10 by 10.
Yes.
On one side is the bed.
You're drawing the bed on the wrong side. The bed is on that side.
Well, it's horizontal. It's a 10 by 10.
Yes,
so I
so-
wouldn't imagine there would be any difference. But anyway, so that's the bed.
But surprisingly, there was.
Okay.
And no, you don't have the luxury of not leaving any space.
Okay, so the bed is on the...
The bed is right up against the wall
Yeah,
on the left side. Yes.
So let's draw this in such a way that it's a perfect square. Okay,
Yes.
so the bed is over there.
Yes, completely
Okay.
to the edge that way. Then you see that space remaining?
Yes.
Okay.
Oh, so this is the kitchen.
That's a kitchen.
Okay.
And the kitchen has, so the upper side has a cupboard.
The cupboard is over here.
Yes.
Okay.
Then that remaining space there.
Okay, so there's a kitchen.
That's a kitchen.
Okay.
Yes. And then for the opposite side, yes, is a sofa.
Okay.
Yes. And it's not all the way to the end, because at the very end, there used to be, at the end on the bottom left corner,
Okay, so this is the sofa here.
the sofa. Everything is against the wall.
Okay.
Job. You don't have luxury for leaving such spaces.
Okay, there we go.
Yes. And
So
that
that's-
sofa of yours is rather wide. Yes.
So let's make it thinner.
You just make
There
it,
you go.
yes, that way.
Okay.
Yes. Then that space remaining at the corner is
Down here or next
no,
to
at
the
the
bed?
bottom, not to
So the sofa is right next to the bed.
Yes, it touches the bed.
Oh.
So these spaces
Okay.
you're leaving, you're too generous. I think we need to re-educate your mind. Space was
Okay.
a premium. Yeah, so the space at the corner
Mm-hmm.
is, there used to be a heap of clothes. So it used to be a place we put a couple of clothes.
Okay.
Okay. Then, now this other wall here were two dining chairs.
On this side here.
Yes, there were chairs, but two like dining chairs, just two wooden chairs over there.
Okay.
Yes, over there. And then that would be the door.
This is the door here.
Yeah, it's a door. And then in the middle space there would be a table. This would be there used to be a table over there. And then this is where it becomes more comical. This entire wall had a blackboard.
Over here.
Yes. So it wasn't fixed on the wall.
Yeah.
Yes, it used to, slant. Yeah, so there used to be a blackboard there. And the blackboard has a long story. When I joined class 1, okay, I performed so poorly. First time I was number 35 out of 36. Okay, and then the second time I improved by 1, became number 34. And that's because one guy didn't do the exam.
Ha.
So the teachers wrote a letter home saying, if this kid does not improve, you're going to expel him.
Yeah.
You need to be really unpromising for teachers to assess you in 2 terms of class 1 and say like, this one, hey. So when my father got that report, that's in an African setting, that's a declaration of war on the child.
Yeah.
Okay. So I was put on tuition, home tuition from as early then.
Yeah.
And basically it was one of my uncles brought in to teach me. And so that system kept evolving. And eventually my dad decided, you know what, we are going to have a blackboard in this house. So one entire wall of the house was dedicated to a blackboard.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, and remember what's it called? The stove we used to cook was a paraffin stove.
Okay, and that stove would be over here, I
Yeah,
guess.
it will be there. And then, of course, there's chalk dust and stuff.
Yeah.
So whoever made dustless chalk needs a Nobel Prize. They have no idea how much they helped us.
Yeah,
because
save
the
the
initial
family.
days, things could get really dusty. Yes.
So, a quick question. Where are the sisters sleeping?
On the floor. So when it gets to nighttime, you see that table in the middle?
Yeah.
You put it on that chairs, this chair against the wall.
Okay, so the table moves this way.
Yes, the table moves that way. So then a mattress at the top. So when you wake up in the morning, the mattress can be put on the boy's bed at the top. So at night, the mattress from the top is put on the floor where the table has been removed. And then where the sofa is, that's someone else's bed.
Okay.
Yes. So between the mattress and the chair, that's a total of 4 or 5 humans who can be able to use that. Yes.
And was there like a curtain separating, demarcating anything?
Yeah,
here?
so the curtain was on the decker. So the decker area entirely was, so that was a bed. So the parents would sleep down, but the curtain would be on the decker side, and then this would be the living side.
Okay.
Of course, the spaces under the bed were used as storage for a few things. There were boxes. There was a few shelves screwed up on the wall up there to put one thing we were rich in was books, my family.
Yeah.
We bought books. Yeah, books we bought. Yes.
There's books everywhere.
Oh, those books. There was lots of. And
I would imagine the cupboard was full of books too.
no, the cupboard was full of kitchen stuff.
Okay.
Mom would not put that. But no, books were there. There was a whole, like you see that sofa side, the
Yeah.
entire top side of it.
Yeah.
Like from the ceiling to
Just
reasonable
above where you're
height.
sitting.
Yes, was a shelf that was screwed into the wall.
Yeah.
It was a shelf of books.
Yeah.
Yes. So that's a space that I was in.
I am very keen to understand all this, man, and especially, the faith aspect in, living in this space.
Mm-hmm.
And I just want to, give a shout out to the folks who are watching us here, who are watching us here. If you're watching this for the first time, this is the Couch Connect. Over here, I hang out with great folks like Saya here, and we talk about the science and art in everyday life experiences. So if you haven't yet, do subscribe to this podcast and do share this with your friends and tell them to tell their friends. And this is my promise to you. I'm going to continue trying to become better at what I do, ask great questions, continue holding great conversations with great folks like Saya. So, Saya, let us continue with our conversation here. You talked about faith. So, going to the EFF. I don't know which F comes first.
Faith. Okay, so the faith angle is really the person who brought me to church was my mother.
Okay.
My mother used to be she was raised in the Church of God. For those who don't know, that's a denomination in Kenya. It's not it's not the English. That's a denomination's name.
Yeah, I know of a Church of God in Jamaica, which actually happens to be one of the largest denominations in Jamaica. They worship on Saturday.
Ah, interesting.
Yeah,
No, the
is it
Church
the
of
same?
God in Kenya does not worship on Saturday. They
Okay.
worship on Sunday.
Yeah, so the one in Jamaica is called Church of God of the Seventh Day.
No, this one is just called Church of God.
Okay.
Or if I'm very tempted to put it with the Luya accent,
You can throw in the Luya accent.
the one, what we are Church of God.
Okay.
Yes, so my mom was raised in a Church of God. And when she gets married to my dad, my grandma, my dad's mom, was one of the pioneers of Adventism in our side of basically in Kenya.
Yeah.
Yeah. So when mom arrives, she asks like, hey, where do people here go for church? And she was pointed to the Adventist church. And that's how she joined the Adventist church. So by the time we are being born, mom is the one going to church. Dad was not going to church. The one who was raised in church was not going to church at that time. Dad did not come back to church until I think in my teens, 10, 12, around there is when dad came. So mom is one who used to, these children wale tumezaliwa kama ngazi, they were like stairs. Yeah, she would put us in a faithfully number 7 bus. It used to pass right in front of our house. Number 7 was to go to Shauri Moyo.
Where did you used to live?
I lived right opposite Daystar.
Okay.
In Nairobi Hospital, right inside Nairobi Hospital compound, yes.
Yeah.
This house is
So
Nairobi.
this house is in Nairobi
That's
Hospital.
Nairobi Hospital. That's how they used to accommodate their staff members.
Okay. So your
Yes.
parents used to work for Nairobi Hospital?
Yes, they used to work for the Nairobi Hospital.
Okay.
I hope we'll reach to that part of the conversation. And they're called the subordinate staff. My mom was
We'll get there.
my mom was a janitor. My dad began his career as a laundry worker, and he was able to grow until by retire he was a phlebotomist. Yes, so that's where we used to live. It's called the staff quarters.
So you get in the number 7 bus.
Number 7, right outside, and then it would drop us right at the gate of Shaurimo SDA Church.
Okay, and Shaurimo is in Nairobi East.
Yeah, Shaurimo is on the Eastland side.
Yeah.
It was like so in Kenya, in Nairobi, the 2 big churches was Nairobi Central SDA, famously known as Maxwell. That was the English, mother English-speaking church.
Yeah.
And then Shaurimoyo SDA was the main Swahili church.
Okay.
So technically, if you draw a line, all other churches in Nairobi begin from those 2. So Shaurimoyo was the main Swahili church, and then it kept growing from there. The English churches largely Parklands, Nairobi East, Nairobi South, Lavington grow from Nairobi Central Church.
Okay.
Yes, the main English churches. Yeah, so we'll go there, and faithfully, Mom would take us to church every day, every Sabbath morning. And the beautiful thing about it was not forced. It was not coerced. Church was one thing we looked forward to. The commitment and the songs and everything we learned there. So we were eased in. So the females around my life, my mom, my two grandmothers, extremely spiritual people. Like I get the idea that my growing up, I caught faith. It wasn't taught. I caught it. When my dad's mom prays, you got the sense she forgot she was with you people. I think she used to be, her and God used to vibe. Like her prayer was very, okay, as kids would feel it was long and because she was soft spoken and low tone, would doze in the prayer. But, the more you grow up, you're like, man, this woman has a walk with God. My mom's mom went to Israeli Nineveh Church. That's why I usually tell guys, like, on the music question, there's part of my heritage that needs music that has
some vibration.
Quite some vibration. So my grandma on my mom's side, she grew up in the Israeli Nineveh Church all the way to her death. It's a church that buried her. Very spiritual. Now the faith tradition is very interesting. In the morning they pray two ways. So the first one is they have to bind spirits, and there you don't bind the devil through Jesus. You address him like directly. So
tell him, hey, devil, get away from me.
And he's not called very easy names. He sees a very hard time in those morning prayers. Shetani wachamo kwa injira tinyamati abandu nabachira basande kubira rula. Like
okay.
my Luya
friend.
That's
speaking in tongue?
No, that's Luya. That's now in Luya speaking.
So those are the real tongues, I guess.
Oh yes, those are the real tongues. Nice catch. Yeah. So being around them, so my grandmas would visit.
Do you want to tell me what that means? What you just said?
Oh, the devil who likes going into the flesh of people and making them to feel pain and sickness, I'm telling you, come out.
Okay.
I'm telling you, come out. Like, wachamo huinjira mbiricha bandu na achira wayenjea vana ba bandu nende muni mahondi ofu rula. You likes to enter into other people's lives and make them look at other people with bad big eyes. I'm telling you, come out.
I had the word Abana there and I thought it was children.
Yes.
Okay. I guess it's people.
Yes, Abana can be people or people's children.
Yeah.
And so you should pray that way, going around the house, walking around the house, in the morning.
This is your grandmother?
Yeah, my grandma, my mom's mom.
Yeah.
My mom's mom. And then when she was done with that, she'd get into the house and just pray like the way you and me normally would pray, like just normally and stuff like that. So I think as a child, when you grow around such influences, so when you'd visit grandma or when they would come, and then mom faithfully in the morning, I think is at 5:30 or 6, you'd hear that Swahili song, Bwana Subuhi Kucha. It took me years to know the yawning was not part of the lyrics, because it actually genuinely took me, because it would be like more Bwana Subuhi.
Yeah, I see that.
Yeah, but faithfully you'd hear her pray that way every single morning, and then Sabbath should take us to church. So that grounded me. Those are actually, and then, of course, everybody thinks their childhood was the greatest or their generation was the best, but the church teachers then, the guys who teach us in children class and stuff, man, those guys were committed. Some of them were dead boring, but you could not fault them on commitment. Like they were very, very committed, very strict. They'd repeat certain things. So I remember someone like Teacher Jeremiah taught us about the sanctuary, where the guy decided a whole quarter we are going to learn the sanctuary.
And how old are you now at that point?
10, 9.
You're learning about the sanctuary?
Yeah, and he made sure it was drilled in. Like, I knew the structure of the sanctuary in and out.
For context here, folks who are not, Adventist or religious here, what is the sanctuary? So
the sanctuary it's drawn from the Exodus account of the children of Israel moving from Egypt to Canaan. And God tells them, like, I want you to build this structure, this tent structure. It's called the sanctuary, that I may dwell among you. And it has articles in it that represent worship to God or are symbolic of Jesus and his soon-to-come ministry. And so it has unique things like a Holy of Holies. It's a 3-chambered building. The innermost, most holy one is called the Holy of Holies. It has the Ark of the Covenant and the throne of God, something that represents the throne of God.
Yeah.
Then there's a holy place that has an altar of incense. It has a table of showbread. It has a candlestick. And then there's the outer court where there's an altar for sacrifice.
Okay.
Yes, and all of this were housed within.
And you were understanding all these things at 10 years old.
When you're taught that for an entire quarter, 3 months, you have no option.
Yeah.
With the charts and everything, it sticks with you.
Yeah.
Like even I think the way I've explained it quickly like this, it's not because I studied it last week. It's because of what teacher Jeremiah did to me as a kid. Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Beautiful.
So my faith, although one strong formative thing for my faith component is my childhood experience. So I had several near-death experiences. And when I say near-death, I don't mean like in the English term. I mean like literally like near sealed, stamped, proved. So like for the first 6...
So scientifically declared dead experiences.
Or this one's like they were really on the edge. So I was born sick. I was born literally sick.
Do you know how many? Were you a full-time baby? Do you know?
I was a full-time baby, yes. Mom says my birth was the most difficult. She needed extra midwives to help with that. But then I was sick. I had malabsorption. And you see, my parents were working for a hospital, and so there was a staff clinic. The nurses would come to our place first before even reporting, but nothing worked. And I was crying like crazy. I'm told I was crying to the extent if I posed and your one leg was out of the bed, you slept in that position for fear of if you return the leg, and I began crying again, there's no stopping. So in fact, my mom's sister, my aunt, had to come stay with us. And what she'd do is our compound used to have a soccer pitch away from the staff quarters. So she'd have to take me in the dead of night to the corner of the pitch so that my parents could sleep because they're going to work the next day.
Yeah.
So it reached a point and that doctors called my parents in and told him, this guy's going to die. We've tried everything. He's not going to live. So our advice to you is take this guy to his rural home, Shags, as we call it, so that he can die closer to... It's cheaper to move him now when he's alive than wait till he's dead.
How old are you at this point?
A baby. I had to be told these stories. I think I'm like 1 or 2 years, and stuff. In later years, I would ask my mom, like, hey, what do you think? My mom was like, yeah, me, I was seeing you're going, because we'd tried. Yeah, we tried everything. I was not responding. So that same day, for all its big names, Nairobi Hospital had very many discriminatory things. Sadly, I have to call them out on that. So like you see, in that point in time, my parents, because of their job cadre, worked for the hospital, but their kids or them could not be treated in the hospital. We would have to be treated at Kenyatta Hospital, which was across the road. Corporate greed is not a new thing.
Yeah.
So anyway, on my way out, literally like from receiving that report on our way out, one of the doctors, the African doctors called Dr. Kungu, intercepted my parents and said, where are you guys going? And then explained, he was like, no, he personally took me to the, I think the A&E, the emergency unit. And
is this now at Kenyatta Hospital?
No, at Nairobi Hospital. Like he went agaga protocol.
So you guys were leaving your house to go to the village for you to go die?
Yes. Basically, that's it. Like the medics had said, like, dude, we've tried.
Yeah.
So I don't know what Kungu put me on, and my life turned around. I got well. And then...
So that's the first experience?
That's the first experience. Then at age 3, we used to live, in America, they would call it 2-story. In Kenya, would call it first floor.
Yeah.
So we used to live on first floor, and there was a clothesline up there. Maybe I should have known that to never have done physics even in later life. Yeah. So I assumed I could stand on there's a guardrail. So I assumed you can stand on the guardrail, jump, catch there's a duster I wanted to catch the duster and land this way.
Come back to the house.
Come back to the veranda. So you can imagine there's a veranda, a guardrail,
Yeah.
And then that's
The floor.
That is all the way
Yeah.
down. Yeah. So I assumed I knew I could get to the guardrail. So I
Yeah.
assumed I can jump this way.
Back from the guardrail.
Yeah, stand on the guardrail. There's a clothesline here with a duster I want.
Okay.
So I wanted to jump, grab the duster, and then my assumption was I'd land back
In the floor
on the
of the veranda.
Of the veranda, nicely.
But the clothesline is going away from the
Yes,
house.
the clothesline is slightly in front, and
Oh,
not
in
too
front
far.
of the house.
It's,
Okay, I
it's
see.
slightly in front of the guardrail.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I didn't know projectile motion works this way, not
Yeah.
not this other way. Yes. So I jumped.
Yeah.
Yeah. And
Did you catch the towel at the whatever, the duster at least?
I missed.
Didn't catch the duster.
I caught it. I caught it, but you see, in the motion of coming down, I let it go.
And you went all the way to the ground.
The floor began approaching me.
Okay.
Yes.
You were floating in the air, and the floor was coming towards
The floor was
you.
approaching.
Well, if you think about quantum physics,
Yes.
that's technically true, but
Yes. So, yeah. So there's a difference between I slid and fell, and this one I had actually gained extra height because I went up almost a whole floor up, and then came
Yeah.
down 2 floors to and the whole lower floor was cement slabs. So it was a cemented slab.
Yeah.
So that was the impact. I had to be admitted. My jaw moved. That was a clear, very near death situation. I was 3 or so.
Yeah.
So, but I survived.
you disobeyed the laws of quantum physics.
And of death.
and I think typically because
Yes.
I think from my understanding of physics, each body has its own gravitational pull, right?
Yes.
And so the Earth will exert, the 9.8 meters per second squared of accelerational pull to you. So your body is also exerting its own gravitational pull.
Yes.
The two of you are attracting each other.
Yes.
And
the flow is more attractive. And I fell from the second story and came all the way down.
And so you survived. That is beautiful.
Yes. I was admitted to hospital. Of course, in my childhood memory, the pleasant thing after that is because my jaw had really been messed and stuff, I could only eat soft things. I was not eating hard things like ugali and stuff. I was eating
So you're eating nice things like I don't know, French fries,
eggs,
okay,
and biscuits that have been dipped in juice so that they're soft. Yeah. So
okay.
Yeah,
So it was a beautiful life. Do you remember the experience though?
Of hitting down?
Yeah.
Yeah, very clearly.
Okay.
I can even still remember who I saw first.
Okay.
It's one of those memories that don't leave you
Yeah.
easily. Like I remember it was Mama Njoki. Mama Njoki was they used to live downstairs. So I remember the last thing I'm seeing before I hit down was Mama Njoki. Then the next thing I remember is just my world spinning and voices and me being carried away.
Yeah.
Yes, and then the next thing is I was in the hospital.
But more of the story, you survived.
I survived.
This is the second experience.
The next year, this thing seemed like they're on a calendar.
Yep. So I think the first you almost dying was when you were 2.
When I was born, so I was sick for like a year.
Okay.
Yes.
And then 2 years old, you're almost dying. So you're almost going home. Then.
Yes, it's from this sickness that the doctors have said, like, hey, dude, take this guy home.
Yeah.
Then I survived that. Then on 3, I'm falling from upstairs.
Yeah.
When I'm 4, we used to make toys. I've told you we grew in poverty. Who buys for you toys? So you make your own toys.
Yeah.
There used to be milk that was sold in packets. It was called Gold Crown. So the boxes were tall.
I remember they were kind of like yellow.
Yeah, they were yellowish.
Yeah.
So what we'd do is we'd connect a couple of them and to make a trailer. Okay, so we'd call it a long trailer. So remember that setting of the house?
Yeah.
It so happened that at that particular time, the way the house was set was a bit the other way around. It was the kitchen was at the door. Remember the layout of the house?
Yeah, I'm going back to the house. Yes.
Yes, so that now the kitchen was at the door.
The kitchen was
At the main door of the house. So you open the door.
Okay, so this door lets us the kitchen.
No. Back then, when I was younger, this design was changed into a bit older. When things were rearranged to accommodate that blackboard, things were moved around.
Yeah.
Okay.
But initially, the kitchen
was right here at the door.
next to the blackboard.
Yes. So I was reversing my trailer into the house. So you can imagine a 4-year-old, I'm not too stable. So I hit the door it opens and I lose my balance. And it so happens at that exact time, my mom is boiling tea, like literally tea was boiling. And so I didn't
fire.
sit smack into it. I sat on the edge. So I had a boiling tea shower
And then it poured on you.
It poured all over me. I suffered several degrees burn at that point. The next thing I just remember is I had to be naked in the house for a very long time. I couldn't go out because I was all burnt up.
Yeah.
Yes.
Not a good experience.
I survived.
That's a good experience. Surviving is a good bit, but it's not a good experience. The fact that you have to be naked in the house all along. As opposed to
as a child,
the previous one when you're eating.
Good biscuits again. As a child, this one was a painful one because I could hear my friends playing outside, and I can't go on cleaning burn wounds is painful.
Yeah.
Oh, it's because I have to apply those creams and stuff, and if anything sticks on it, you will sing.
Yeah.
You will sing. And this is a case where nobody has to tell you can't go out here. Like, dude, you can't wear clothes. You can't. You just have to be that way.
Yeah.
I survived. Then the next year, we were playing with my bro.
So this is a fourth experience.
Yeah, they follow each other. I was trying to build to you how I think my faith formation happened. So the next day we're playing with my big bro Joey, and same plot. So then he swerves. I think we're playing. It was either Icho or Police and Robbers or something. You tap and chase.
Yeah.
So he swerves, and as I'm chasing him, I lose balance and my head hits the door of a neighbor. The neighbor was out, so he'd padlocked his doors shut.
Yeah.
So I hit so I just remember coming down and a stream of blood following me. Okay, only to realize that blood was mine. So those are gaping wound on my head.
Back of your head, I guess.
Yes, part of my head again. So it had to. So if I say silly things today, like this head has
some bolts were unscrewed. Then
more than bolts, like a fall. We've had it's had quite a number of things. So I had to be taken to hospital to have that head sutured. Yes. The wound is still here. It's that one. It didn't even wait for balding. That one, the hair got lost at that age to occur. But I survived after that. So a few years after that, from I think around age 9 or thereabout, I began losing my vision slowly, painlessly. And then by the time I think I was 9, 10, I was legally blind. Okay, I had lost vision on my left side, and I'd lost my vision on my right side had become like 20% or thereabout. So growing up, even during my most challenging of times, I would remember all of those things. Now, I remember couple that with seeing my grandmother pray, my mom taking us to church, me enjoying my time. And in a strange way, I think the divine speaks to different people different ways. So for me, how it settled very easily in my head was, God, you've preserved my life for a reason. It was easy. If you wanted me out of the game, for me, it was easy. You'd have allowed. And surprisingly, this is even hard prayer as a child. Like, God, if you wanted me out, you'd have just removed your hand. Like I had given you enough opportunities to call it shots. But that you preserved my life, I know you've preserved my life for a purpose, on purpose. So just keep me. So therefore, for me, my faith formation was settled. Way before I began understanding doctrines and stuff like that. Those impressions had been like, hey, there's a divine interest in my life. Of course, it was only buttressed by now the pleasant church experiences and all that kind of stuff. Just have to bring it together.
And the teachings of the sanctuary at 10.
Yeah. shout out to teacher Jeremiah.
Yeah.
Yes. Yeah.
Okay. So I see how this builds you to become who you are now? I mean, I'm connecting the dots here, and like I said, I'm just trying to plant myself in the roots that define who the adult that is sitting in front of me is today. And so the one letter of the acronym EFF that you left out, or that we haven't talked about here, is education. But before we talk about that, there's a bunch of things that you said here that I may want to take us back to. So the house that you live in, the 10 by 10 structure, was in is it like an apartment building? So there's a bunch of other buildings.
Yes, and then they were arranged in blocks. We had blocks A to J.
Okay.
And they were arranged in an apartment. So each block had 12, on average, 16. Each block had 16, so a total of 8 on the ground, 8 on the top. There was one block that had twice that number and one block that had half that number, but on average, that was the number.
All right. And so what are the neighbors like? I know you've talked about Mama Njoki and the neighbor who locks their home. But where you're growing up, I know you've said that it's defined by poverty. So what are your neighbors like? Are they friendly people? Are they people you can talk to? Or people you can relate to?
You see, when you live, you live that way, and all of you guys share a bathroom. That's at the end of the.
So the bathrooms are outside.
Where will you put a bathroom in that 10 by 10?
Like, actually, now it makes sense.
So there's a shared sink. They shared 2 sinks for washing utensils. There's an open courtyard where you hang clothes.
Yeah.
There's a shared 2 bathrooms per floor. So downstairs, the lower floor has 2 bathrooms, 2 toilets. The same with upstairs. So that's 8 houses sharing 2 bathrooms, 2 toilets. And our house was not atypical. Okay, so there were a few houses where the next door neighbor would probably be him and his wife, or the wife would be up country. But most families had children. So 3, 4. Back then they didn't know 2 children, so it would be 3, 4 kids per home on average. Okay. And so when you're in that space, neighbors were very friendly. So would play. My estate mates or the guys who played with soccer.
Yeah.
We played all those childhood games. Would make the toys together. Would make footballs. Would make cars out of wire, out of tins, mabati. We did that. Of course, the normal squabbles of being in such a space exist, like who's moved my clothes on the clothesline, who's poured big ugali in the trench. You know, those ones didn't, but it was genuine family. I realize I'm emotional at this point because down the road, the Nairobi hospital made an economical decision, purely economics, to bring down that place. Okay, and so they retrenched employees en masse because it was good for the books. And what they ended up doing is they tore a community apart. And though that happened when I was slightly past campus, I realized it had affected me because for me, Nairobi Hospital, that place we grew up in wasn't just housing. This was, people have married from there. Our memories are built out there. There was a very strong sense of community. There was a circle. People were, people had guaranteed each other. When there was a funeral, would do the literal thing of lighting fire and being around it. And at least for the time I grew up as a kid, discipline was communal. If you went and messed around 3 blocks away, the discipline would be ministered to you there. And if the parent came back to you to report you to your dad, you'd again get into more trouble. So it was genuinely community. And so I become very sad when I remember this because the corporation just decided they wanted to make savings and stuff, and they shut that part. You clearly can see the kind of conditions we used to live in were not the greatest.
Yeah.
But it was appreciated. At least we had free water and free electricity. The pay was not the greatest, but just cutting off such a community without giving thought about the community that was later on destroyed is bad. But I digress. But you asked me if my My neighbors were very friendly.
Yeah.
Many of them have remained to be friends and associates up to now.
Yeah.
Up to now. It was a way to think about it was just like one big African village. So it would have the full shebang of an African village. There would be the problematic guys, there would be the helpful guys, but we came together. We played. When there was funeral, we came together and contributed and went all the way to whoever has been bereaved home. We celebrated whichever wins had. There was a soccer team by the estate, which was a very good soccer team. It brought people together. So it had it was a good place to live, to be and grow. My neighbors were great.
Yeah.
Yes.
I was just thinking about the fact that you told me that, the place you grew up was brought down.
Yes.
And I was thinking about, that, when we're talking about roots here, that those are your roots. And, when those roots are taken away, it's like those roots are cut off.
Yes.
And, I understand you there. And I do sympathize with you and, your neighbors and, the community that you grew up with.
Yes. I think one day we will do a research, and anecdotally, though, when we observe, that decision didn't just break up a community, it broke up people. It broke up people. When you look at it anecdotally, there are people who, when you trace their death, their physical death, it trails back to that. There are people who, when you look at, they never were able to fully recover from that. So some became alcoholics, some lost the community that they were responsible to or that looked out for them. And that was just done so that a company that was already rich could be able to make a few extra coins is pathetic. And for very long, I even still think up to now, when I pass, the same space where we lived is still empty. So there was no emergency or per se. I don't know if they wanted the place to look better. The only thing I noticed is they took our or the pitch we used to play in soccer, and they've put up, towering stuff and what have you. Maybe that's a price of progress. I don't know, but I think I'm way more humane for the cutthroatness of corporate greed.
Yeah. Thinking about your parents here, as we're getting into, the education that, becomes, makes you who you are. So your parents worked as the subordinate staff at Nairobi Hospital. I know that you say that your dad eventually became a phlebotomist.
Yes.
Right? For context, yeah, phlebotomists, the guys who
drew
blood.
blood. Yes.
Yeah. Okay, but they started off somewhere.
Yes.
So where and the reason why they were living in the staff quarters where they were living is because they were subordinate staff. So
yes, it's because that was their cadre, because of their job cadre. Yes.
So what were they doing again?
My mom was a janitor.
Okay.
Yes, my mom was a janitor. So my parents had not had the privilege of having a great education. Not my parents are bright, genuinely and this is not because I'm a biased son, but I've hung around. I've been in the education sector, and so I've hung around my parents. They're sharp. My parents are smart. They were just denied the chance to have an education, either by my grandparents either didn't value education or didn't have the means. So my mom dropped out at class 7. That was the highest class in primary school in those days. My dad went up to technically Form 2 first term.
Yeah.
And then school fees was a problem, so they both dropped out. So they're not illiterate, but they're not very highly qualified. You understand? So my dad, during his hustle days, he had the chance to work in a laundry for, I think, one of his cousins. And then as life would bring it, he would find his way to Nairobi. And the Nairobi hospital back then was looking for people to work in the laundry. And fortunately, the interview was, you come and operate, you come and do stuff. So because of his
experience.
previous thing he had done, while on the road, he came and he was able to
Turn it on.
turn it on, do the stuff, and
Yeah.
he landed
Had the
himself.
job.
He landed himself a job, and then when he got the job, he was able to talk to the HR and say like, "Hey, you see, I'm married. Is there something my wife could be able to do?" So I think they also instigated a spousal hire for him, and
Yeah.
my mom is a class 7. In her experience, she'd babysat for some of her very own cousins, had made her a babysitter. So she was brought in and worked in the janitorial department for the wards. So mom stayed in that track. She kept growing in that space. That began at the laundry, and my dad is very industrious. So is my mom. He was able to then grow from there, poco a poco, little by little. And he found his way to the lab, initially as a clerk in the lab. And then he took some training. He became a very good phlebotomist by that time. But then became so good that post-retire, he used to work for an anti-doping people who would fly him around to take blood samples for athletes and stuff.
He'd sniff out a vein where you can't see any.
Dude can sniff a vein in a newborn. And if a guy is so gone and he's all bone and no one wants to touch him, that will get you blood. He will. And he's not the kind who pokes you 12 times before he draws a drop of blood. No, he's once and he's good. He's very good at phlebotomy, very good.
Yeah, I think that's a great experience because I've seen, especially when they're looking for veins in babies, man, I look up, sometimes when they look for veins in my daughter, and I had this nurse who poked her twice. I was very mad at that nurse. I said, you know what, we'll come back tomorrow.
Like, go learn your stuff before you... No, that would get you blood from a kid.
And then now they even have machines that are able to detect a vein.
Vein easily. Dad was the machine.
The OG.
Dad was the machine he needed. He was very good. Yeah, so he grew up that way. And so because of, and I know here I'm veering a little bit into family. So somewhere in their career, Dad got an opportunity that allowed him to make, within the hospital, he was to get a newish position, that allowed him to make way more money. But it came at an expense. He used to work, the idea was he would work longer hours into the night and stuff, and he'd get his break, I think, in the weekend and stuff. So he wouldn't see his kids. He tried it for a month and then he refused. He said, give me my old thing. Let me do I want to be with my kids. Yeah. Of course, my parents were very strict. So at least for the month he'd been away, we, the naughty ones, were happy, like, whew, there's less caning happening. Yeah. It's, of course, in hindsight, you look and you're like, man, that was a bold but important decision that he made. Like, he sacrificed making more money to be there with his family, and it's the dividend that decision has paid is so much more. Yeah. Yes.
How important do you think it is for parents to spend time with their children?
Oh, 1,000,000% important. Totally 1,000,000% important. So, you see, like the estate we grew in, I have colleagues, neighbors and stuff who are gunned down. Yeah. Okay? Because we're thugs. People normally, when their neighbors are gunned down, you're like, oh, Alionea, no, these guys, some of them were thugs, Yeah. And when you draw back the line, it's upbringing. It's a parents. Parents need to spend time with their kids because it helps you check any character developments or things that are going off and nip it in the bud. And then secondly is it's a very good way to transmit values and principles and stuff like that. Because as kids, many of the things are caught, they are not taught. Yeah. And you need so the parents need to be around so that the bad English here, the caughting can happen, the catching can happen, and less of the teaching can also occur. And also, what psychology is showing us now is that, in as far as the development of a child is concerned, adult company is way more important than children company. Okay, because the adults help to regulate And it eventually helps with things like the attachment styles and stuff. So parent spending time is going to be very, very, very important, both at the childhood level and even when you get to be an adolescent. The only difference is at childhood level, the children want the parents in a needy way. And in adolescent level, the children want parents, but at their terms. So parents need to be available when the children are adolescent so that when the adolescent finally comes out of their shell, the parents are there.
Yeah.
Okay. So it's extremely, extremely, extremely important to be there. Yes.
And, when I think about it now, sometimes I think that the fact that we live in an, not only, thinking about the fact that we live in North America, but also generally in the world, we live in economies that need money. And sometimes, as a parent, you think about the fact that, man, I got to make money to support my family. But then at the same time, I need to be there for my family. So sometimes it can be a really difficult balancing act, in my opinion.
If you can, the reality is this, is going to be a sacrifice. Something will be sacrificed in this equation. Let's not kid ourselves. It's either going to be your kids or staff.
Yeah.
One of the two has to be sacrificed. Stuff can always be, you can catch up on stuff later on. Or if you've lived long enough without certain stuff, you'll be like, actually don't think I need it. So there's a substantial amount of chasing two jobs and stuff in North America, which when you dial back, you realize a good amount of this is just for, I want a bit more stuff. Okay, so you may need to scale down. You may need to say, okay, can we live in one room less, or can we cut on a few more other things? Now, I'm doing this with a lot of respect because I know the guys who are living hand to mouth, paycheck to paycheck.
Yeah.
And so I'm not in any way or form imputing that they're lazy or stuff, but I'm just speaking to places where people can begin. And then secondly, when you zoom out a little bit more, what I'm about to say is going to be controversial. You begin realizing that at a certain level also, what happens is when two parents are working, one of the income is for childcare. So you might, at times like that, you may need to have that difficult conversation for, does it make sense for one of us to stop working and become the primary childcare giver?
Yeah.
I know that's a very controversial proposition, but what does a family truly gain if they have two incomes, but what they're basically doing is they're working hard to have other people raise their kids?
Yeah.
So sacrifices are going to be made in this equation. And it's a question of sitting down and having those candid conversations about it.
Deep. You got to think about it.
Yes.
I'm going back to your home here where you grew up, and I'm looking at this blackboard, and I'm looking at the fact that you told me that you were number 34 out of 35 when the 35th student didn't take their exam.
When the 36th one didn't take.
Okay. Oh, that's when you became 34.
Yes, I became 34. Before I was number 35.
Okay.
Yes.
So education becomes very, key in the route to making you who you are today.
Yes.
So, take me back to, this kid who is position 34 out of 35, out of, 35, but eventually is, working out towards their doctoral degree.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. I'm just putting this as a time marker. Yes, sometime today after recording this, I'll be doing the analysis for my doctoral data.
Okay.
So that's just a nice time marker on this conversation. So I got home with the report, with a letter that says this kid is going to be expelled because you're not doing well. So what happens is, after that, is what's basically unleashed on me is violence. You're basically drilled, you're spanked a bit more and stuff. It's a part of the upbringing that I don't think was the best, but it's happened. So I moved in one term. Third term, class 1, I was number 10. And one term, I moved from 34 to 10. Now, do not be deceived. There was no sudden injection of brilliance in me. It was fear. It was like, man, I ain't going to get more spanked than this. So you see, the problem is when you move from 34 to 10 in one term, You come back home, you expect to be told, this is very good. You're told like, so you've just been playing all along.
So instead of being congratulated, you're
hii
told,
ni
oh,
michezo,
man.
kumbe ni mchezo umekwanga tu ukifanya. Yeah. So like, instead of like getting a congratulations or being told like, so you have the ability, you've just been playing. So the December holiday, the drilling and is ratcheted up. The spanking is ratcheted up. So class 2, term 1, I was number 2. So I moved from 34 to 10 to 2 in 2 terms.
Yeah.
You understand? And up to that point, to be very honest, I think it was more of the fear. It's amazing what adrenaline can do. Okay, it can make you freeze, but it can also make you feel like, wait, I need to get this thing going. Yeah, and so from there you pick. But to be honest, the time I felt I finally settled and I began understanding. Up to now, I don't remember what I learned in class 1, 2, or 3. I don't.
Yeah.
But from class 4, okay, and now when I read development science, I almost begin understanding why, especially for males, our physical bodies and our minds are really not ready for the rigor of formal education until we figure that class 4 age 10, 9 is when we have settled. Before that, play is really important. But you see, what was being robbed from me earlier those days was play, because play was seen as being poor. So from there on, I kept on working and remained more or less top 10 in the stream. So in my own class, the worst I would be was probably number 7 or thereabout. There was a blip in class 8 where I was number 14 once, and I was called to the principal's office. I was given such a scolding, and by the time it was done, by the time I was index 9 in my school. My school was a very good school.
Yeah.
I was in St. George's Primary School, Nairobi.
Does it still exist?
Yes, St. George's Primary still exists. It's a public school. But back in the days, it was a very top-notch school, very good school.
What do you think happened?
When the free primary education program came, the middle class withdrew their kids from public primary schools and went more to academies and private schools. And with that, the funding, the management started going down. So the story for my education, so in terms of my performance, beyond that now, combination of tuition, fear and stuff. And then I think by class 4, personal motivation began kicking in. I tended to be a above average performer.
Yeah.
By the time we were reaching class 8, I was index 9 out of 120, 130, students.
They're still at St. George's?
Yeah, at St. George's. By the time we're doing KCAP, I was number 6 in my entire school. I was called to go to Dagoretti High School, which by then was the only provincial boys boarding school in Nairobi. So it took like the sharpest, the brightest that were around. I was, my term 1 in Form 1, I was number 2. And then after that, I was number 1 until the end of Form 2. So I was number 1 5 times in a row.
Yeah.
In Form 3, we reorganized classes because I was going to take all sciences. And now there was the brightest of brightest guys. But I was still top 10 consistently.
Yeah.
And by the time I was finishing, I scored, a B+. I think I missed an A- with 2 points. And then I was called to the University of Nairobi.
Yeah.
But there's a backstory to that, which is when my dad, in all his hustles, was coming back in the days before we were born, he somehow made the commitment, and determination that the thing that was going to make a difference for his children and posterity was education. Like, if this was a gamble, he'd gone all in on education. But dad, my dad is human, he may have his flaws, but the one thing nobody anywhere can accuse him is he skimped on education for his children. No, he went
all in.
He went big or he went home. Like, education was something he invested in. So he made
the blackboard.
It started even prior to the blackboard. He made 2 strategic decisions that were extremely important in shaping me and my siblings. So strategic decision number 1 he made was, we will not be raised in our rural home. So he, because for his level of earning and the normal psychology of that time was, if you're earning that level, the normal way people would do things is they would leave the wife up country with the kids as the man goes to look for stuff.
to hunt.
Yes, to hunt and probably send money. But the problem is education in my rural home was not valued, and there were very many wrong ideas floating. Things like, you see, a case like my dad had not finished schooling, but here he was working at a big hospital in the country. And so people in the village could tell the same to their kids, like, so-and-so didn't even study, and look where he. So education was not, kids could figure class 4 or 3 and declare them they finished. They finished.
What are they doing then? I don't know.
They drop out of school.
Start taking care of cattle?
They begin, and within no time they're married, and they just get in that strand of life.
Yeah.
So people class 4, class 6, class 8 is a huge celebration. So my dad, I think, foresaw this, and he said, like, no, he's not raising his kids up country. Now, we would visit up country, like during our school breaks and stuff, but we're not raised in that. That was strategic decision number 1. Then strategic decision number 2, if you understand the geography of where we were, Nairobi Hospital, the closest school, and which majority of my estate people went to, was Mbagathi Road Primary. And there was a school next to it called Shadrach Kimalel. Now, no shade on them, but in terms of quality and rigor, they were not the strongest. Okay?
Yeah.
So Dad made a different decision to take us to St. George Primary School, which in terms of walking distance was longer than going to Mbagathi. Was just down the road, and anyway, everyone else was going down there.
Did you pay school fees to St. George's?
But I went to school before Kibaki became president, so schooling there was activity fee, there was tuition. So it was more expensive than the rest. And then...
So I think that's a sacrifice that he made.
Huge, very huge. Everyone made a sacrifice here. We had to walk a longer distance. We had to... There's also a class thing here. So the kind of kids who went to St. George Primary School were really...
Wealthy kids, wealthy families.
Yes, let's just say they were very wealthy.
Yeah.
Okay, and the class difference was very huge, at least. The good thing as a kid is at times you're born blind to class and stuff.
Yeah.
But there'd be signs. they
You'll
say,
be there with your one shoe the entire semester.
One shoe, I had 2 pairs of uniform per week.
Okay.
When my colleagues would change daily.
Yeah.
So I used to wear same uniform Monday through Wednesday, then Thursday, Friday, the second one.
Yeah.
So there would be signs, and remember we were born so close, so the uniforms I'm probably wearing are hand-me-downs from my own bro, from my big bro and stuff. At least the thing I was not able to inherit from my bro was his shoes. His foot was way bigger, and he used to go through shoes very quickly. But shorts, those ones.
And maybe the sweaters were from your sisters too.
No, the sisters were to wear blue sweaters. So,
okay.
So I couldn't be handed down, but bags, books, sweaters, lots of hand-me-downs that happen.
Yeah.
So there's you get to feel that class difference. But providentially now, what I didn't have in class and status and money, and those are really a big difference. Like now when you look back, you're like, okay, it makes sense. But when we're going through it, and so for instance, would be given 5 bob, be given 5 shillings. There was a period in time where for like 2-3 years, we moved out of Nairobi Hospital. My dad took us to Ayani. He felt we needed a bigger space and stuff. So Ayani Estate in Kibra, and we used to walk from Ayani to St. George's every day. So you used to be given 5 bob, and you needed to make a decision. Will you eat lunch with that money, or will you board a vehicle in the evening? So if you eat lunch with it, you'll walk home. If you skip lunch,
you'll take a vehicle home.
You'll take a vehicle home, and you need it home at a certain time. Otherwise, again, you'll be in trouble. Meanwhile, my classmates are coming to school with pizza for break.
Yeah.
For break. And then lunch, they're going to eat. They're paid for hot lunch. So such differences. But now the big saving grace was this. We were not windheads. So
What's a windhead?
We're not daft. Yes, we didn't have wind in the head.
Okay.
Yes, so those are whenever we had family meetings. My dad was very good at convening those.
You and your siblings?
Yes.
At elementary school, at primary school?
For various reasons, we would always, like either during devotion and stuff.
Okay, I see.
And Dad would remind us, the only thing I'm able to give you guys is education. Grab it with both hands. Like, education is the key. Education is your cake. So education was driven into us as savior, method, everything. Like, hey guys, the only thing I'm genuinely able to give you guys is education. I was educated on loans. So my parents they belong to a SACCO, a saving and credit organization. For those who don't know what SACCO is, at the Nairobi hospital. So they'll take loans, and my parents were very transparent. They'll tell you like, hey, we've taken this loan, please go work hard. Don't make this money go to waste. So you're going to school fairly motivated at whichever level it is. So remember, I told you we were raised to look out for each other. So when you're in school, you're looking out for your siblings, and of course you're going to go back with them. And then secondly, you're in school knowing this is the difference maker for you. The only thing your parents are able to give you really is your education. So of course there would be, life is life. There'd be a few of those guys who'd look down upon you or who would treat you badly. But in my mind, I'd be saying like, it's okay. Just do your thing.
Yeah.
Pale kwa exam. Pale kwa exam is a reverizer. We will reverize this thing. You just treat me the way you're treating me now. Pale kwa exam. I wish we will reverize this thing. We will know. We will see lanes there.
Yeah.
Yes. So I had that extra motivation. And in the case of, I think all of us except two of my siblings, we were also given a measure of public speaking ability.
Yeah.
So I began doing public speaking way before I even knew I'd be a preacher. From class 2, I was already doing public speaking, and it ties very closely to my. So remember in church where we were raised, we were already doing memory verses. Okay, so you already know how to stand and say John 3:16, for God so loved, then you finish and say Amen, and then
Amen.
So by the time people are reaching in class 2 and public speaking is beginning, the competitions, I'm already
ahead of the game.
I'm already ahead of the game. My bro is brilliant at acting. My one of my sisters, I think, was in the quiz team by then and stuff. So so at least on the academic side of things, we're not struggling. We may struggle on other things and we may respond with it differently, but that part is not struggling. So for me, I personally went ahead to, apart from class 1, and I think once in class 5 or 6, I represented my school in public speaking competition all the way through to class 8.
Yeah.
And in all cases except in class 2, I would make it to the provincial finals.
Yeah.
I was in the quiz team in class 4 and the quiz team in class 8. I was in the debate, in the Mjadala team in class 7, in the debate team in class 8. I was the leader of the Mjadala team. So public speaking was a thing. So the good thing with those is it helps me feel part of the system. You're appreciated, you're celebrated. And my grades were not bad. I was doing well. I was, top. Not always number 1, but, I was doing quite well in my school. So education to me and my siblings had been presented as a savior, as the thing that will save me. And then God gave, additional gifts in there that would help us make our education experience extremely more pleasant. For me, the public speaking carried over to high school. I remember doing, those things for Daraja ya Tatu Ne A. I went to Music Fest doing a Swahili verse all the way to the nationals, represented the school.
Okay.
All the way to the nationals. So it was something that came to me
that came naturally.
a bit more naturally.
And maybe you can even talk about your high school experience a little bit, because I know we talked about it, but you went away pretty fast. And I remember, so to give context here, I had to drive across countries and across state lines to get to hang out with Jackson on this pod today. And thank you very much for inviting me over and us having this chat.
Karibu.
But in our conversation yesterday, we got to talk a little bit about your high school, Dagoretti High School, and I got to learn that you were in school with quite a good number of notable people. And I'm saying this because you did say something here to qualify this statement. You say that Dagoretti High School was the only provincial high school in Nairobi at this time. and it used to take really smart students from across Nairobi.
It was only provincial boys boarding
Oh,
high
okay.
school. There were other provincial day schools, and in Kenya, in high school, people prefer going to or being taken to boarding schools. Yes, so the schools that were at its level would be probably Upper Hill or Highway, but they're really not. People wanted the boarding aspect. However, the time I was in Dago it wasn't led well.
Okay.
There's just no other way of saying it. Dago was not led well. And that became, when you put together such brilliant, Dago had genuinely brilliant guys, and I can tell the quality of brilliance by the level of mischief and the sophistication of the mischief and misbehavior that was done. Like, this was not some dumb guy doing this or dumb guys doing this. These were very bright guys. But leadership makes a difference. And Dago in my time was not, it didn't have strong leadership at the top. And so it became a place that perfects whatever you are. Okay, so as I was telling you yesterday, it's a school that has produced everything from KJ to YT2 and anything in between. We've produced preachers, we've produced thugs. I know previous schoolmates who are gunned down. I know previous schoolmates who are high flyers all over the world. They're addressing assemblies of the United Nations, and they are winning awards. So it perfected whatever it is you are. Yes.
Yeah.
But it was an epic space to be. epic space to be. I remember there was a teacher who, for Form 1 and 2, he was teaching me a certain subjects. And in 2 years, the guy attended less than 10 classes. In 2 years of teaching me, less than 10 classes. And without fail, every time we had marks, we had grades for things. I'm wondering, when did we even do that? Like,
so you think he'd fake those?
I think. Like, if I didn't do the cut, or I did only one cut, how do I have 2 cut marks on my report form?
Yeah, and so I'm wondering here, would he award every student very high grades, or
people didn't used to fail?
Yeah, because I'm wondering if I got up getting a 90% in this, otherwise I'm complaining,
People never used to fail.
Yeah.
So he got so lazy one day. What he did is he merged 2 classes, and then he took the exercises at the end of the, in the textbooks, the exercises. That's what he gave as a cut.
Yeah.
Okay. And you basically are answering. And then after that, he told you guys to switch your books with your deskmate. And then you mark. There's so many failure points on this idea.
Yeah.
Then after that, remember, these are 2 classes. So instead of, so you're like, 80 or thereabout guys in one class. And then after that, he makes you say your marks. So he calls Joab, you say your marks.
And then he records it somewhere. Yeah.
So you've done the exercise. It's basically an open book exam that you've done, marked by your deskmate, and then say your own marks. How do you fail?
You got to pass.
How do you fail? And so my deskmate was a very honest guy. I think he'd gotten 70-something. So his name is called out. He says 70-something. Then the teacher looks at him and says, Jinga kabisa. Then he says, he changes the marks off the hook there. It says 85.
Okay.
He changes it ad hoc like that. So after that, who is going to say if they got 60 and stuff?
True.
Yeah. So I had teachers like that. I had schoolmates who I remember once going into class somewhere was it Form 1, second time or thereabout, and one of my classmates is going in the opposite direction. I'm asking him, like, hey, dude, you're not going to miss this class. And then he tells me, like, very matter of fact, like, I know that one I have dropped, that class. Form 1, second time, you've dropped. Remember, dropping units happens in Form 2, third time.
Yeah.
Okay, when you're going to Form 3, first time is when you've chosen. So there were crazy things. People used to sneak out of school, drink like crazy, epic ideas of bullying and stuff. That was a dark side of Dago. But then on the bright side of Dago, very spiritual people, extremely, some who I know who own and run churches right now.
Okay.
Former classmates who are pastors right now. And it didn't begin post Dago. It was during their Dago time.
Yeah.
So Dago perfected whoever you are. And so by the time I got to campus, to the University of Nairobi, I used to tell people, no, I've already been in campus the past 4 years. Because we had the level of freedom and autonomy
In university.
you'd have in a university right from when I was in first term, in Form 1. And the level of vice and temptation and self-regulation we'd been exposed to was such that by the time many guys would be arriving in campus and they're all bamboozled and, dazzled by all of these things, I'm like, no, sorry, it doesn't. I have seen way worse for way too long. Like, really, that you have to try. That was really like one distinct advantage, at least for me, for Dago is by the time I got to campus, I was genuinely nothing was thrilling, exciting, or distracting me. Like, I'm like, no, I've seen that at another level. I've seen that I've been in spaces where that has been done to the level 10. It's not moving me. Yes, at all.
Yeah.
The only big disadvantage I think Dago did is I don't think he did justice to people's potential. Like, to be very honest, I think in my days and time, if you're in Dago and you got a C+, you're an A student.
Yeah.
You are an A student, like a solid, you're brilliant. You get, like, if you took a Dago C+ student and probably had taken them through one of the national schools, I could almost bet my liver I'd be an A student. So the fact that they didn't do justice to people's potential, that was very sad. And then I think the second sad thing was the level of dysfunction that they made people comfortable with. So people lived in, Dago's a heavily dysfunctional space.
Yeah.
Yeah. And the problem is, as teenagers, when you live in such a space for so long, you begin glamorizing it and begin thinking it's all. Then it's only later in life you realize, no, that was counterproductive. Yeah, so Dago didn't do the best way of building rhythms, rituals, and relationships for success. But in as far as making you streetwise, making you look out for yourself, making you look out for others, making you become well-resolved in your place, it's second to none. It's second to none in that. And for me, it was a good beginning ground for deepening my spiritual ties. I became baptized when I was in Dago, as in I was so committed to it that I went through baptismal class twice.
Yeah.
I went through first year. I was recommended for baptism. I was like, can I do it one more year? Then I got baptized when I was in Form 2 after taking it twice. I began preaching to my fellow classmates in that same weird setting of Dago in the classrooms when we were 40. So I became used to mixed audiences, very young, very mixed audiences and potentially hostile audiences, very young, very early. I was 16 or 15 when that was beginning. And I think when teachers saw that you're a committed student, they supported you. Some teachers would support you. So I got support, like my commerce teacher, my English teacher, took personal interest, and they helped. They gave me papers and stuff and did quite well in those subjects.
Yeah.
Yes.
When I met you, the second time I met you, we were having a chat about, when I met you. I think the first time I met you was in the year 2009. I was in my first year of university then. I was also just running my company around the same time. And so we met in one of the clients that I was servicing. But the second time that I met you, you'd come to give a sermon in my school. So you probably don't remember what you preached about.
It's 16 years.
But you did talk about a parasite and how sin could be compared to a parasite. And, later I got to learn that, you'd had, taken your undergrad in zoology and probably at that time you had done or...
I was finishing
your master's.
2009 I was done.
You're done with your master's?
Yes.
Yeah, and so maybe that is the reason why you would give such a powerful sermon. I know. Do you remember that kind of that sermon? If I gave you the idea that you talked about a parasite comparing it to sin.
Yes. The problem is I have since then developed an entire framework model for how people navigate transitions using parasites Yes, so away from scene.
Okay.
But yes, I would remember the outlines.
Beautiful.
Yes.
Yeah. So, and I think it's nice that you remember that. So, I think that's what I want us to talk about today, actually. And I just wanted to understand all these things that have built this guy who is able to deliver such beautiful messages, give nice lectures, wonderful lectures, write awesome books, and just become successful. I know that you did your undergrad in zoology, your master's was in
medical parasitology,
and then your PhD is in leadership.
Organizational leadership.
Organizational leadership, yes. I think it's a very beautiful transition, going through all these things that you've gone through. But your first book was called When the Grass is Greener.
On the other side.
Yes. I read that book I read the book twice. How do you come about, we're having a chat with you right now about, writing books, and you told me about the process of writing books. So that process, you say the first thing you do is
decide the style you want to write in. There are a variety of styles. You could write as an epic, or as a novel, or as fiction, as non-fiction, as a biography.
Yeah.
And then once you decided on the style, that's almost like your voice that you're going to use. You then do a mind map.
Yeah.
A mind map is you're doing the pool of ideas. You're basically doing an idea dump and trying to see how it could be able to go around.
Yeah.
Many people do their mind maps differently. Some of them do it like a idea cloud, some do it linear, some do it as bullets, whichever one works for you. And then after that, you now organize your mind map into sections.
Yeah.
And those will become your chapters. And you're therefore deciding, so in this section or chapter, these are the core ideas I want to communicate. And some people then flesh that a bit more. And if you're writing it as a story, you're going to say, this is what this character will experience, and this is how they'll resolve it, and this is the dilemma they will live.
Yeah.
Then once you've done that for your entire book, writing after that becomes easy. You then commit to, some people commit to either time and say, I'm going to type for 2 hours. Others commit for number of words. I'm going to type so many words. Others commit for number of pages or chapter. So you put your thoughts. At that point, the emphasis is put your thoughts down. It's not thinking about its coherence or edit and stuff. So just put it down. Then when you've done that, you can do one of two things. You either review that chapter before you move to the next, or you can actually keep doing that way until you write the whole book.
Yeah.
And then you read it as draft one, noting and commenting where you need to make changes and what you need to add. And so once you fix that, you then read as draft two. And it's advisable you work with an editor because they help get you along the process quicker. You need two kinds of editors. One is the one who helps you check your typos and stuff. We call that your copy editor. And then there's an editor whose work is to check how your flow of thought, your construction of ideas, the coherence, have you solved all problems and stuff?
Yeah.
Yeah, you also need that kind of an editor too. And besides that, the rest you now need is just a graphic designer to help with your cover.
Yeah.
And so the process I've told you is for self-publishing, but even for traditional publishing, it'll happen in a variant that is kind of similar.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, I'm in the process of writing my first book.
What's it about?
Interesting. So I am a scientist, and I like to see science in everything. And so I'm a student of history too.
Makes two of us.
And so I'm trying to see the science of history in everything. And so I'm either thinking of making a series of books whereby I talk about the history of science in every individual sort of category of things, or just focus on medical practice, which is mostly where my research is based on.
Okay.
And so I've done quite a bit of extensive research on the history of different tools that are used in medical practice and different practices that are actually carried out in medical practice. And so I'm trying to write that down in layman terms.
Okay.
And one of the other things that I like to do is I study a very complex topic. So in my thinking, the field of engineering tissue to replace tissues for transplant. It's a very complex topic. But my background is not in biology. My background is in engineering. And so for that reason, I struggled very much for the past couple of years trying to understand the serious biological terms that were used by either my professors, my supervisors, my researchers, and so on and so forth. And so now when I teach, I try to break down everything into layman terms. And so some of my students would find me not to be very deep, but a majority of students like myself teaching because they think that it's easier to understand. And so I'm trying to think of how can I make all these complex topics become interesting to be understood by people. I digress, but yeah.
No, you actually help a lot. Just also in your digressing is the more modern areas of biology, like immunology and stuff, the language is more accessible because the disciplines developed when the language had already developed.
Yeah,
so you'll find they use a lot of common language, but a similar burden that you have for making stuff accessible, at least linguistically available, has been what's been behind my push for in preaching or in teaching. It's I have a 4-part criteria: a clarity, relevance, application, and today immediacy. Yes.
Beautiful. So let's talk about when the grass is green on the other side.
Yes.
I mean, I know folks after probably watching this show are gonna, want to go and buy this book. So they will talk about where they can find the book. But what is the idea behind you deciding to write when grass is green on the other side?
I had experienced it with so many people. So all the books I write is from experiencing it with people. I began preaching when I was 15, 16, and I began counseling informally as then because I was a leader already in my church. So when I'm writing books, I'm writing normally from the struggles and to the extent possible expressed in the language of the people I'm talking or I've been talking or hanging around with at that time. And a decade ago, which is when I wrote When the Grass is Green on the Other Side.
It's been a decade already.
It's been a decade. Time flies. When I wrote When the Grass is Green on the Other Side, it was because a lot of my peers at that point were getting to finish their 20s and getting ready for their 30s. And there was that realization like, hey, wait, maybe life is better on the other side. And then there's also been this big push on the side of faith where many people have become secularized and they begin feeling like, hey, this Christian thing is either talk and no power or it's not really relevant. It's better outside of the faith circles. So those two things, career realities, life realities, and faith realities from people around me made me think like, okay, how do I answer this in a way that is biblically honest, but also experientially relevant? Yes.
Okay.
That's got me going there. And then because I'm also wired as a scientist, since I am one, the thing is, how do we create a framework that bases on the Bible, but is able to help you know, A, am I going through that struggle now? Am I going through the green grass struggle now? And then B, what are the practical things I can do to navigate it at this point? I'm notorious for giving long answers to short questions. So the burden at the back of my mind is this. Many times I sat through messages.
Messages here are
sermons when people were preaching, or lectures, or teachings, which the thing that was nagging me at the end of my mind, back of mind was, so when we are done with this, what do I do next? Or what about this? What about that? When you're speaking and somebody is answering those questions, or at times I'd be like, man, you couldn't have said more, done it or put it together. And my burden therefore became, God, when my time comes, if I ever have a chance to speak to people, I pray no one will be struggling with my struggles when I'm the one on the other side of the lectern or the pulpit. Okay, like let it be clear. I'm less concerned about the loudness of the amen during the sermon. I'm more concerned about the straightness of the walk after the amen, like the relevance of it. And as detailed in my experience, you clearly see there's been a divine hand guiding me in very practical ways, and also at times in ways that they don't lend itself very easily to words, but you then can later on break it down into principles. And so it has been my burden to show that the gospel is not woo-woo. It's either not just theologically conceptual that prepares us for a pie in the sky by and by, but it is anchored. It's relevant. My starting premise is that life is designed.
Yeah.
Okay, life didn't just occur. I have done evolution, and I don't have enough faith to believe in it, because it is a faith at the end of the day. And so I see evidence of design everywhere I look. And so life, it is designed, and design runs on principles. So life runs on principles. There's friction, there's gravity, there's seed time, there's harvest time. All those are principles. The people who succeed in life are those who understand these principles and are able to leverage them. And my premise, therefore, as a Christian, is that God in His Word has revealed those principles of life and is inviting us that when we take advantage of them, we can have success in life, in every area of life. So my burden is not to preach at people, but to invite them to see the Bible for what it really is. It's God availing these principles. The Bible has a central mandate, which is to reveal God and His love and His character, so that people may understand the plan of salvation and come to Him. But as part of the package, it is a revelation of the principles of life, and God is inviting us to take advantage of those principles and apply them in any area, any domain of life. You know, fire burns, whether it's lit by a priest or by a infidel. Okay, because that's just how fire works. So the principles of like money and the principles of relationships, and the principles of the directions you take, they are universal, and they're there in the Bible to help. And so the green grass principle is one such.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so then, taking on the principle of, the green grass, could I say that, are you trying to tell me that the grass is not necessarily green on the other side? It's probably because, the person over there is watering it as well? Or what are you trying to say?
What I'm trying to say is, so first of all, the book, The Greener Grass, is based on one of the, I'm currently rereading the Bible. It's fresh. There are passages in the Bible that are rough, and they are raw. They're like, I was reading to my wife the other day and saying like, if my child left a note with this passage of scripture, and I didn't know it was a Bible, if I read it, I'll take them for counseling. I'll be like, hey, this guy's writing some things here that are just too real and raw. And Psalm 73 is one of them. The lead musician is there saying like, hey, dude, God is good, but I agree. Hey, but me, I was gone. My feet had gone. Like I was looking at the prosperity of the wicked, and me, I was like, ish, these guys have it, and those guys are having a hard time.
Yeah.
So when the grass looks green on the other side, when you read Psalm 73, it tells you, ask yourself 4 questions. Or as, that's the advantage of a decade later, polished it a bit more. It says, when the grass is green on the other side, pick a leaf. LEAF. Okay, that's how you determine. And those are the 4 dimensions, or the 4 dimensions or questions you ask yourself.
Yeah.
So the F dimension is foundation. What's that grass growing on? It's a question of foundations. Grass that grows on sewer will always be green year round.
Yeah.
But if you want a divorce, just suggest to your wife you go for a picnic on sewer grass. No one wants to do nothing on such kind of grass. So what's that grass that's attractive? What's it really growing on? Then, of course, we delve into the foundations of life. Then A is the question of artificiality. Is our grass real or fake? So like astroturf will be green whichever time of the year. The heat of summer or the death of winter, it'll be green. But if you release 2 cows, one to real grass and another into astroturf, If the cow eats stuff, it will die.
Yeah.
Okay, because it's not. Is it real or is it fake? So some things that attract us, so same as grass, are they real or are they fake? And then E is the question of effort. Is the grass greener because the grass is greener where it's watered, where it's manured? It'll be greener there. So is the grass green on the other side because you have not done the best with what you have? Asaph, in a very real moment in Psalm 73, says, "Man, I was foolish. As for me, I was foolish. I was looking at these guys, yet I'm always with you." So he has all these resources of divine power in his hand, but instead of him leveraging them to the best, he's busy looking at what other guys are doing.
Yeah.
And then the final question is a question of legacy. When I finish growing myself on this grass or spending time, what will I leave behind and what will it leave on me? So next time some grass, whether it's an opportunity, a relationship, a career, a friend, a business deal, seems to be greener, whatever that means, pick a leaf, look at it, just take it and ask those 4 questions: legacy, effort, artificiality, and foundations.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I think this will apply in everything, like you said.
Yeah.
Yeah. And even, some people will probably be thinking about the situation that they're in right now, and they're looking at other opportunities elsewhere, and they want to take those opportunities. And maybe they should think about reading When Grass is Green on the Other Side first.
I agree.
Yeah.
When you're trying to analyze and stuff, in this aging time when people have normalized, say, divorce, because they feel some other partner is more attractive or more promising than their own, maybe they need to read the book. Some people are pushing their children in a career that looks greener. Maybe your child is really wired to be an artist, and you've seen bioengineering like you are in as a more greener thing. So before you push them there, just think about the leaf and apply it to your kid.
Yeah.
You're thinking about moving countries. Before you immigrate, you need to ask yourself the exact 4 questions for the country you are in versus the country you want to go to, or you're thinking of changing careers. You need to also ask the same 4 questions. That'll be of help. Lest you arrive in what you imagined to be green, and you only realize, wait, it also needs work, or wait, this is not what I thought it was meant to be.
Yeah. And even so, let's say I am where I'm at, either in my career or in my education or in my child's career or suggestion or something like that, or even in my country, and I'm thinking of making that move to another country, another career, or another, girlfriend, boyfriend. Do you have any sort of suggestions or principles that I would take on and apply to where I'm at right now before I think of, that change to the greener grass?
Things worth having in life are built, they're not bought. That's the first thing I would always remember. So more often than not, when we want to make that move, immediately you need to ask yourself, am I in a situation I'm trying to buy a quick win? Or can I stay around and build an enduring thing? Something I could, think of the other moment. And then secondly is to apply the principle of the path, which is direction determines destination. Direction and not intention determines destination, which means if I'm thinking of going to another country or, go to another boyfriend or another girlfriend, something I need to ask myself, this direction I want to take, will it take me to the destination I need to go to? Will it take me to financial security, spiritual stability, honor, respect, and stuff? If this road is not taking me to that destination, no matter how good my intentions may be, I may want financial stability, I may want a good name, I may want, if the road I am on is not taking me to that destination, no amount of praying or good intention will get you there. You need to begin by aligning direction with destination.
Yeah.
And then the third thing I'll do very quickly is ask. The best way to know how a place is ask those who've gone ahead of you or who are coming back from it. Ask ask. We normally imagine, I'll be the pioneer, I'll do. No, just ask people who've been there and ask them, what's the journey to get into where you are like, and what's the experience once you've gotten there? You see, like you live in Canada, I live in the US. If I wanted to relocate to Canada, it's naive for me to begin imagining I'm going to be the pioneer and stuff. The 30 million guys already in Canada, at least I can talk to one and ask him or her, like, hey, what's the journey to becoming a Canadian like? And when you get there, what's a lived experience? I think if people just did those three things as a preliminary, even before they began or as they apply the LEAF concept, it would significantly reduce the number of bad decisions people make.
Yeah.
Or one more other thing, I know you've asked me for, there's something, the book, Better Decisions, Fewer Regrets, Andy Stanley, he asks for questions that I think everybody needs to ask themselves in that particular moment. One is, why am I really doing this? And then follow that with really, ask yourself that, Then secondly is, what does love require of me? Not what does comfort, what does praise, or what does love require of me? Then thirdly is there attention in me that deserves my attention? Is whichever tension is there within you as you're trying to make this decision that requests your attention, it's something you need to resolve. So there's the integrity question, why am I really doing this? The love question, which is what does love require of me? The conscience question, is there attention in me that requires my attention? I've forgotten the fourth question. But those are like the important questions to begin asking yourself before you make any of those decisions.
Yeah. What did you call the book again?
It's called Better Decisions, Fewer Regrets.
Better Decisions, Fewer Regrets. So if I wanted to get your book, When the Grass is Green on the Other Side, where can I get the book?
It'll be soon available on books.by. It's a bookstore. So books.by/Saya Jackson is where you can get any and all of my books. Yes.
And I think you told me earlier that you've taken it down because you're getting a second edition out.
Yes,
Okay.
I'm updating it. Experience as a good teacher, you learn, you want to improve and polish it out. So I've taken it out, but it'll soon be available back up there.
Okay.
Yes.
Beautiful.
Yes.
So I also know that whenever we are living out life, we always see green grass, multiple times across across the street, over in other countries, and but not only that, also as we are growing older, we are constantly changing, and I know that you are really deep into this, topic of transitions. I know that your next book is also on transitions, but let us talk about transitions in general. Why do you think? Do you think it is okay for me to assume that I'm always going to be transitioning through life?
Yes.
Okay.
It's sadly the reality of life. You're either going through, or coming from a transition. Some of them is because they are inevitable. By that I mean, when you move into your midlife, you can't stop the calendar. You're in your midlife, and biologically and socially, there are certain changes that will happen. When you get to your retirement age in your 60s or thereabout, biologically and socially, the inevitability is when you're a teenager, when you're moving from 10 to now your teens, you're 13, you're thereabout, it's an inevitable change. Like in your teens, you're too young to be a full adult, you're too old to be a child. You're going through a transition period. So is it correct to assume you will be in transitions? Yes, absolutely. There'll be inevitable ones. And then secondly, there'll be categories of transitions that happen just because life does happen. There'll be layoffs, there'll be retirements, there'll be, you'll become a parent, you'll become an empty nester. So life will just happen. You'll be promoted, you'll be demoted, you'll need to change jobs. You will be one day a student in college, next day you need to become going to the world of work, or you will become a mother who has to retreat back to raising a child for a while, or a mother who's been raising a child and now is getting back to the workforce. So transitions will happen. And then there's those that I have no idea what they're going to be doing in Silicon Valley and what they will produce there, and it will mean skills that have served me for the past X years need refresher or replacement. And so I didn't plan for that, but hey, AI is here, so I need to transition. As somebody said, AI will not replace any jobs, but somebody who knows how to use AI will replace you, so you'd better become that person.
Yeah.
So transitions they're part of life.
Yeah.
We're just going to have to be. So the better we become at dealing with them, every author thinks that the book is going to be the next important thing. But I would say after the EQ revolution, the emotional quotient and the way we break it down, I think the next big thing is for this kind of world is your transition quotient, and it's your ability to build it is going to be important.
Yeah.
Yes.
Because there's big changes happening every time.
And will continue. The thing that is going to different to the digital age as opposed to, say, the agrarian revolution is the rate of change is faster. But the only slight difference is the agrarian revolution took a while and stays longer.
Yeah.
In the digital world, the changes happen faster, but they stay shorter.
Yeah.
So you find Snapchat comes and it's a thing for a while, then before we even acclimate to it, something else has replaced it. Instagram was rising for a bit, then suddenly TikTok came, it's taken over. I could almost predict in another decade there'll be something challenging TikTok. So changes are happening quicker, and then they're staying shorter. And so we need to be more adept at transitioning, because it's part of just the life we are in.
And as you were talking about this, I was thinking about podcasting.
Yes.
Right now there's 1 million podcasts being uploaded on the internet every single day.
Yes.
And for a very long time, folks used to tell me, you have a beautiful voice, you should get into radio. I tried getting into radio, and I couldn't, because I guess it was a cutthroat competition or whatever.
We needed to change your name. Joab Ogato. Back home, all the radio guys have, I was telling your wife, names like Shitsia, Wasilu, Hamis Temo. You need to have, a name that, I sit up, Joab Ogato. No, not happening.
Yeah, and so now I got into this podcasting thing, and I think that I'm using my voice to try and impact people's lives, and hopefully this is going to be helpful. But also these discussions that I have with folks are really helpful. And so when I think about transitions, I'm thinking about, okay, so podcasting is going to be here for the next 10 years, but then something else is going to come, or even shorter, even 5 years.
Yes.
Or even shorter. So how can I use my voice then at that point to keep impacting people's lives? But it's a beautiful way to think about it.
And you're asking a golden question. And you have your finger on the pulse. Sorry, I'm inevitably wearing my coach hat here. You're asking the right question. That's a golden moment not to let go. You figured out the thing you're really doing is you're using your voice, the gift of voice, to impact people's lives. Podcasting is simply the tool at this moment. When technology will change or society will change, and who knows, maybe go back to reading or watching and stuff, for you at that point to insist on podcasting is being stuck in a transition. Okay? But the thing that you will be true to is you're saying, I was called to use my voice to be a blessing to people. And you may find maybe at that point, I don't know, audiobooks or God knows what else will be coming, is the question that you're guiding true north at that point will be, how can I use my voice with the current tools and where the society is to be a blessing to people?
Yeah.
And then you become tool agnostic. Yes, many people are overcommitted to their tools and overcommitted to their titles, such that when transitions or pivot moments happen, they're unable to move because they've either overinvested or over-identified or overcommitted to their tools or their title, that they're not able to move from that. So if you've overcommitted and said, I'm a podcaster, when podcasting stops to be it, you can't move, because what are you moving to?
Have no idea. Or you are afraid to transition.
You're afraid to, because then transition begins to look like something scary. But when you begin realizing, okay, the tools are changing, what's true for me, my voice is the thing I need to use. What's the best way to be? Where's the society at? How can I impact that? Then it becomes, and whatever title, 10 years ago, we didn't have a title of a podcast, or we didn't take you to school and you ask, "What do you want to go?" I want to be a podcaster, and your mother would withdraw the school fees. Actually, and say,
"What do you want to be when you were growing up?"
I don't know
when you were 10 years old ish. Maybe.
Oh yeah, I wanted to be a doctor. I wanted to be a surgeon.
Okay.
Yes, I wanted to be. I grew up around a hospital, so what else did I know? I wanted to be a neurosurgeon or something.
Okay.
Yes.
So we're going to come back to that, but you're telling me about,
Yeah, so remain with that flexibility. That was a teaching moment I could not let go.
Yeah.
Yes.
Beautiful. Okay, so we were having a chat a few moments ago about parasites, and and you told me that you now have a new way of looking at it. Parasites and transitions. Is that going to be in the book?
Not this particular book.
Okay.
Not this particular book, but in the next. So, yes.
In this particular book, so maybe we can talk about your next book first. So your next book is called?
It's called The In-Between.
The In-Between.
Yes, The In-Between.
Okay. And what are we talking about in this book?
Exactly as the title says, that place where the familiar past is gone and the hoped for future is not yet arrived. So you're in this space. One sarcastic writer says, when your feet are firmly planted in mid-air, you really, what are you? The past is gone, the future is yet to be. So you're in this middle space. Some people call it waiting. Some people call it liminal space. Some people call it transition space. So that awkward middle. And in some cases, it goes for a few days, a few months, but sometimes it can go for a couple of years. It can be quite a length of space. And so the book then breaks down what do you do to make the most of that period, because the desired future will come, but opportunity will favor the prepared. So how do you use that liminal time to prepare for what's coming next? How do you let go of what once served you so that you can acquire what will serve you going forward? Yes.
The beautiful thing about this is that the book that we are talking about, The In-Between, is actually available right now. You can go to books.by/Saya Jackson. So books.by, can you say it again?
books.by/Saya Jackson. That's if you're in the rest of the world. For those who are in my home country, Kenya, you can go to nuria.com and look for Saya Jackson. That's where the book would be found.
So if I were to get the book, The In-Between, and I'm probably stuck in a transition, how can I benefit from reading this book to enable me to take advantage of the situation that's happening around me so that I can be able to transition into the next tool or the next title?
How long do we have?
We have time.
So the book lays for your it lays for your 5-part framework of spelled simply as the words ADAPT, adapt. It helps you to adapt.
Yeah.
And then it tells you 3 myths that you need to be on the lookout for.
Yeah.
So if for nothing else, it helps you, what the adapt model helps you to do is A, it helps you locate where in the in-between you are. And then B, it helps you know, in light of where you are in the in-between, what you need to do at that moment. There's an accompanying set of resources of, say, assessments and things that you can be able to do that.
And these are resources that are available on your website?
Yes, they're available. There's a QR code you can be able to get to where they are. Inspired by the book, putting together a platform called Transition Central. That will also be live for any people who want to take assessments, get the book, or get courses that can help them with their transition. Yes, it's a home of everything transition.
Beautiful.
Good. So you need to analyze where you are. Not every trigger is a reason to transition. Premature transitions are dangerous as much as delayed ones, because there's a lot you leave behind on the ground. So there's a 3 T's framework that helps you with that. You check your traction, your threats, and your target. And then D is you develop a team. In every good transition needs a team. You need it's almost like a transition council. The framework we use for that is called SHIP. People who shape you, who keep you honest, who insulate you, and will take you to your purpose. So if just so staying true to your question is, if you're in a transition moment, how this book help you, it will probably help you know, like, should I transition, or should I be, what other strategies do I exist for? In the D dimension, it will be helping me know, how good is my transition team? Is it well stocked? And there's a way of breaking it down. And then the other A is about knowing when to quit. Okay? Quitting as a short-term strategy is a bad idea, but quitting as a long-term, for long-term good is actually good. People who are successful, it's not that they don't quit, they just know what to quit and when.
Yeah.
So there are three, it's called the 3 Qs framework. You either quit, you question the important questions you need to ask yourself, or you kilt, you join together, form pieces to begin forming a new thing.
Yeah.
And then P helps you, the P dimension is to help you, assess what kind of what's your, the same way you have a personality, you also have your transition personality. How you transition is not how I transition.
Yeah.
So knowing your transition personality is going to be important. And then secondly is it's all about what we call active waiting. So it's knowing your personality, your transition personality. It is leveraging the opportunities for service that you have around you, because they help you keep your skills fresh, and they help you prepare for what's coming next. And then it is, so you know your personality, look for opportunities of service, and then begin observing the terrain. What's changing in the terrain? What is changing it in the terrain? And how do I prepare for the same? And then finally, T, the Dr. Patricia, who was very kind to write the foreword for my book, Patricia Murugami, told me, like, I hadn't thought about the T dimension, which is letting go. Like, don't stay there. We can have been in a transition situation for so long and built systems around it that it becomes our identity. And the time comes, the door to opportunity has come, and we are not ready or willing to go. So we need to let go. And you don't just let go. There's a plan to let go. It's a 3 Ws framework.
Yeah.
You need a plan to widen, a plan to work, and a plan for your worldview. When you have those in place, it helps you know how to responsibly get into the next thing. So in a coconut shell, that's what the book would help you with.
Yeah.
Yes. Oh yeah, and on the side, it'll be helping you deal with things like the green grass myth, the certainty myth. Will be helping you deal with those.
When I've been listening to you narrate these experiences here, man, I think that this is a book that should be in every household. Every child should read this book. Every parent should read this book. Everybody should really read this book, because I think it's really important to kind of give an idea of how we can live through life, because it's kind of like a tool, or a prop that you will need in your life, almost, because we're always transitioning.
Yes.
Even when you don't want to transition, you'll be transitioning into something. From being single to being in a relationship.
Yes.
Even, or from being vegetarian to being a meat eater.
More or less the other way around, yeah.
Or vice versa.
Yes, or in a relationship to being single. Like, you've become the new citizen for Vumbistan.
Yeah.
Umeachwa. Yeah, so it becomes a book that may be worth for you to read. And the good thing is it's written, so this time I went for a book that's written like a story. So it's written very, very story-like. It's purely like a story. It is inspired by the book of Noah, the Bible, but...
The story of Noah.
The story of Noah, not the book, the story of Noah. Thanks for the correction. But as I keep telling my reviewers, it is too spiritual for the unspiritual, and it's too secular for the spiritual.
Yeah.
So meaning it's
also in the transition.
Yeah. Yes, nice one. I see what you did there. So it's if you love stories, it'll be good, and not because I'm selling at you anything. I think reading the book and then going over to like Transition Central and begin to explore some of the tools to make it more practical will give you such a richer experience. It's a great book for people who want to study together. So whether it's a family that's looking for something they can read for, it's going to be 12 chapters.
Yeah.
So if you did one a day or one a week, you'd read it for 12 days or 3 months.
Yeah.
Maybe a good book too. And it's structured in such a way it could trigger a lot of conversation.
Yeah.
The characters in there, you can identify with some, or it'd be nice if your devotion or your group study or your your book club has been needing something to spice it up. Maybe it's a good book to pick and have convos around it.
Yeah, beautiful.
Yes.
And when I was thinking about this, so this podcast is launching around the same time that we had Nahash's album come out, and we had Nahash's episode that was aired on the Couch Connect last week, and also you guys also have a series, like a mini series, or if I could call it that is
a web series
that's come out as well. So what is the connection between these three here?
So we came together, Nahash and myself, to create a project. It's called the HeartFixer Project.
Yeah.
And the HeartFixer Project is 3-in-1 things. One is a 15 music album by Nahash, very beautiful music. At least I had the advantage of listening it for like a month or two before it was released. And
yeah, damn. You were lucky.
Then it's been amazing, different sound, very nice. And then there's a book, The In Between, and then the third is there's a web series called Ndoa.
Yeah.
It talks about challenges people have in the family that we normally don't talk about.
Yeah.
But we put all of this into the HeartFixer Project because people's hearts need fixing. Transitions do a number on us and stuff. And if we can speak about them authentically, we also then ultimately, as people of faith, believe that at the end of the day, God is the heart fixer of all these things. So like Nahash music is the music used in the web series. Yeah. So it's a 5-part episode at this point.
Yeah.
If you give me more money, we these things are expensive, so I realize.
Yeah.
So if you give us more money, we'll be happy to keep extending the episodes. But so far, we've used like Nahash music in the web series, and I'm very, very happy to collaborate and to keep growing in this.
Yeah, beautiful.
Yeah.
Do you guys take donations or anywhere that we could plug in here and ask people for donations?
We are open to donations. We've just not set up the infrastructure for it. Yes.
I know you have a website, and maybe people could reach out to you there.
Yes.
Your website is?
My sirejackson.org.
Yeah.
People can reach me out there.
And you have your contact in there as well.
Yes.
So people can find
All my
there.
contacts, are right there.
Yeah.
And also I'm sure like in where people will be getting these show notes, you can be able to share all the other details.
Yeah. So all the details are going to be on this description to this video. So how you can reach Saya, where you can buy his books, where you can, reach out to him, his socials and everything. They're going to be in the description to this video. So you can go there right now. If you actually want to buy the book, why don't you pause this episode and go over there right now and buy the book? And, so you can actually, get to learn this. And, after you're done reading the book, maybe 12 days from today, you can come back and finish this video. Right? Yeah. So by the way, you also offer a course, and I think that's where we could plug in the Parasite, the Parasite and Transitions together. So can we talk about that as you plug in the course as well? Yes.
So I'm offering 2 courses so far. One is the course built on the book, The In Between. Its idea is to practicate, if that's acceptable English, the principles you learn in the story of the In Between.
Yeah.
But then the second one is the Parasite Model. So, what's the easiest way to bring? The sun is there up in the sky. I wake up in the morning. I wash my face. I brush my teeth. I comb my hair. I take a cup of tea. I wear my shoes, and I run to school. That's a song many of us, included, said when we were going to school. I mean, in school. But I grew up I did zoology for my undergraduate and then parasitology. And of course, I began looking at those statements very differently. Growing up, I was like, wait, okay, the sun is up in the sky. I wake up in the morning. I wash my face. Why? I brush my teeth. Why? I comb my hair. Why? I wear my shoes. Why should I not just go barefoot? I take a cup of tea. Why did it have to be cooked? And imagine I realized the golden thread in all of those things is parasites. If we don't do our hair well, we'll get lice. If we don't do our teeth well, the Trichomonas buccalis will become unbearable either in smell or, our teeth will have, or gingiva will become a problem. We wear shoes because of jiggers. We cook our tea because of everything from tuberculosis and various
To E.
other
coli
things.
and everything,
And
yeah.
E. coli and all of those, So parasites have become such an integral part of our lives. They're so successful that not only do they unconsciously occupy our minds, but each of those elements I've just said that we do in an average morning has an expenditure to it.
Yeah.
There's a soap for your washing, there's the brush for your hair, there's the amount for your shoes, there's a power to boil your milk. So they've commanded mind and pocket share.
Yeah.
Okay. And it made me think like a parasite.
Mm-hmm.
It's a very controversial way of thinking because people hate the word parasite as the idea of taking, advantage of people and all of that. But in the world of parasitology, we look at it a bit differently. There is, what a parasite really is doing is it's trying to survive. And a well-adjusted parasite does not want to kill its host because it's suicidal. It's in its disadvantage.
Yeah.
So there's thinking like a parasite, and then there's thinking parasitically. So the thing we all hate is that parasitically, where I'm just leeching out things from you.
Mm-hmm.
But thinking like a parasite is, how do I put myself in environments where I'm able to achieve maturity and I'm able to propagate?
Mm-hmm.
You understand? So it made me then realize when I was going through the life cycles of parasites and stuff, man, these things are brilliant at transition. The reason they've been able to grow to a point where A, they occupy environments you and B cannot live. If I made you live in your own gut, you'd die.
Yeah.
Yes, you carry your gut, but if I made you live in your gut or conditions like your gut, you die.
Yeah,
But parasites
definitely.
thrive in that hostile environment. So A, they live in hostile environments, and then B, they've been able to grow to the point they command mind and pocket space in our lives. And human beings have solved some of their most profound problems by looking outside of the human experience. We made faster birds by looking at the kingfisher. We made better warplanes by looking at the eagle and certain breeds. We made the satellite system better by studying the eye of the owl. We learned Velcro from certain plants. Okay, so there's something called biomimicry and bioinspiration, where biology inspires engineering.
Yeah.
And I then began thinking, why don't we use that for just every other area of life? And for me as a parasitologist, then parasites became a brilliant model about how to navigate transition because their lifespans may be short and is spent almost in its entirety in one form of transition to another. Some parasites live as less as a week, and in that period of time, they've acquired 4 different forms of 5. From egg to pupa to larvae to adults, within a week or so.
Yep.
Yeah, so if we've been able to solve engineering problems by looking at biology, why can't we solve transition problems now that transitions are more frequent, more intense by looking at parasites? It may be a weird source, but I think we have. And so the 8 letters, Parasite, exactly tell you how to do that.
Yeah.
So in my first course, it's called Tip Top Transitions, we walk through that model. I walk you through the Think Like a Parasite model to help you know and how to navigate transitions.
Yeah.
From knowing where you're presently, attaching, repositioning, avoiding distractions and DI, distractions, and DE, destroyers, shedding off unwanted or unnecessary parts, insulating yourself, traveling, that's for the T, and then having a plan for exit.
Yeah.
Yeah, so that's the whole parasite motif.
You come as a whole package, man. Yeah, and this is beautiful. So having this conversation with you has been very inspirational. I want to take you back to something that you said earlier here in passing. And it's something that I've, ever since I knew you, I think I've thought that you have this superhuman ability to live with it. So you said that you had some problems with your eyesight at age 9.
Yes.
So how have you been able to navigate the world so naturally with this problem?
Humor, humility, and hope. I think looking back, those three things: humor, humility, and hope. Humor is my friends made good-natured fun about me and my eyesight. When I was way younger, which allowed me to laugh at myself and others rather than pity myself. And so I didn't see my eyesight as a pitiable thing, but there could be humor out of it. Very funny things, like they'll take a book and put their face in it and say, guys, how does I read? Then they're like this, So it's very good-natured humor, in that particular time. Or, you guys, how do you think ever Saya will date a girl? Then somebody would come and put their face in their friend and say, like, hi, who are you? So the humor helped. And then humility. The problem with hindsight is it makes you sound more spiritual than you should be. There's a part of me that sees my eyesight problem almost the way Paul saw the thorn in his flesh, as permitted of God, not necessarily given, but permitted of God to just be a good reminder of dependence on God. And therefore, everything I have achieved to this point, having told you about how terrible I was as a student, and then B, therefore, seeing what I've been able to achieve. I graduated with first class honors, top of my class. I got a scholarship and all of those. None of those can therefore be attributed to me, especially in my condition. It makes me be able to point myself and all who look and say, hey guys, I may have done my part, but there's a divine power that's responsible for everything that you see at place here. So that's a humility part, just the recognition that in all of these things, navigating, God has permitted it and is using it for His glory. There's a section of testifying and testimonies in Christianity that is usually based on strength, like, hey guys, I was broke, what, then God gave me money. It's good and it has its part and needs to be done, but I think there's also a stronger testimony to be given when you're like, hey guys, I can't see well, and I'll be this way till God does something or He comes back the second time, but I'm trusting Him. I'm still loving Him. I'm serving Him. I'm not loving Him because of. I'm loving Him in spite of. Okay, so it's my allotted humility part. So and then hope, just the hope that one day technology will improve. The hope that there's more to me than eyesight. It's a tool. Fine, it genuinely sucks that I can't drive. We once tried, being told, and then my brother told me, you'll kill people. Because even when my wife is driving us around, I usually ask, okay, so at what point should I be able to see the other number plate? Then when she tells me, I'm like, okay, I can't even see that number plate. So when they come close enough, they're like, you have to come that close to see. Okay, you can drive. I can't read turnings on the road. I would always be making the wrong turn or driving at a dangerously slow speed and stuff like that. So, so it allows me to. There's hope that one day maybe self-driving cars or maybe some chip will be achieved and stuff. But I'm not naive. I keep living. Even as we go. And God has genuinely surrounded me then with helpful people, right from when my vision went and I couldn't, when I sit in front, I can't still read the blackboard. And I remember Edwin O'Gara, he used to sit right behind me in primary school. And so what Edwin would do is he would write his notes loudly. He would verbalize. When he's writing his notes, that would follow. Okay, and he did that for me.
Yeah.
He did that for me. All the way through to, what ended up happening is I always used to be one period behind. Though in school we used to have 30 or 45-minute periods, so there's math and English. So it would mean when English was happening, I need to be catching up with the previous class notes, So it meant losing breaks or shortening my lunch period so I can catch up on notes or using my prep in a certain way and stuff. But it's okay. And maybe because when I came to the US, And I have a testimony by the way. When I came to the US, I realized part of the challenge I had experienced was just where I was. Like, Kenya was hard. Like the resources I have received when I was in the US, it's re-emphasized that hope theme that, when you come back here, you realize, wait, part of the reason I had to even change my career after my master's was in Kenya, the outlook was, hey, I can't thrive in this space. But I've come to the US and I'm like, maybe if I had come to the US, I'd have still continued in my initially intended profession in the sciences, because the technology is so advanced, it would have helped me be able to get there.
Yeah.
But the hope keeps me alive. So my testimony, my quick testimony, no, not quick. So 2 years ago, I became blind, like blind. Now I'm legally blind. I operate with only 10% vision. But so this day, it's a Friday, it's around 7 in the evening. We just finished a call because the next day I'm meant to be preaching in my church. And so we're finishing the normal prep of a Zoom call or stuff. I sit and suddenly my vision just becomes cloudy, then dark, then gone. Okay, gone. And my sister calls at around that time. And so I explained to her and she's like, my sister's a medic. So she tells me like, go to the hospital immediately. If that call hadn't happened, I probably would have dragged my feet because in the past at times I have floaters, the things we call floaters, and they clear. So it was painless. It was completely painless. So I'd probably have chilled and said like, this is another floater situation. But I explained to her what has happened. She's like, go to the hospital immediately. So I tell Karen, my wife, and it so happens by that time, A, we're in the US, B, we're in this house, which we got where we're living. We hadn't chosen it for any, it was like the available house. We came to US in January in the thick of winter, so we just got this house. But turns out our house is a walking distance from the ER. Not Uber distance walking, like we can, Karen was my walking stick, guiding me to the ER. That was one of those weird longish weekends, which are holidayish. So the physician was seeing us, makes a few calls, and turns out that on call is a retina specialist. So that was a Friday. And she's like, okay, tomorrow I'm reviewing somebody, tell him to come. So I come and she checks my eyes and she's like, wait, you need surgery. So it turns out I had my retina had given way, okay? And I needed surgery, I think, within 48 or 72 hours. Within 36 hours from when I lost vision, I was in the theater in the US. Okay. I kept thinking, if this was Kenya, right now I'd be using a white cane. Because before I get to Kikuyu or to Loresho or whichever place, that's it. We'll be done. But God had brought me to the US. He had orchestrated that where I got my house was just the right place. And when these incidents happened, randomly my sister is calling at that time, and that's us, the kind of phone call we needed. When I'm getting to the hospital, the doctor on the other side of the call is just the kind of specialist we need. By the next day, I'm receiving the kind of help. So such things keep my hope alive, because in the ensuing period after that, I've been able to be exposed to way more resources, got an enormous amount of help. I discovered there's an entire library for blind people with visual problems. So in Pittsburgh, it's called the Library of Accessible Media of Pittsburgh. That gives me cassettes that I can listen to and stuff like that. So when things like that happen, they keep that flame of hope going on. And maybe even the hope that one day, when guys buy my book and I become a bowler and stuff, I should be able to set up things like this for folk back home, where they least experience stuff like this. So that's how I navigate this. Beautiful. Again, a long answer to a short question.
I think that the answer is very inspirational too. And, the way you finish it off, it's like, you are even looking out for the folks who don't have the opportunities that you have. The folks who might be experiencing the same challenges as you, but don't have the resources at their disposal. Resources that should have been made available by, some people, but maybe we don't want to go in that direction right now.
Yes.
So when people are sitting on this couch, I like to say that I treat them like presidents, kings, and queens. And I've borrowed this idea from the president of the United States. When they are leaving office, they normally leave a letter for the next guy who's coming in. I don't know if a letter is going to be left for the next guy who's going to come in after the current president, but we'll see. Hopefully they do. So when guests come to the Couch Connect, they'll normally leave a letter for the next guy on the show. And so the question that was left here for you is, so funny thing is, normally the guests don't know the next guest on the show. And I don't see this question until I'm seated right in front of you and I'm just about to ask the question.
Okay.
So I just open this question, and the question is this, and you can take it in whichever direction. So if you were to dedicate your life to one thing, what would it be?
To remove the barriers that hold people from living to their full potential, so that guys will be able to go through life without losing their vision, silencing their authentic voice, or compromising on their values. That would be it.
That's the first shortest answer you've given. You make me fun of the fact that you said, long answers to short questions. But anyways, yeah, beautiful.
I think it's because that question really is asking me what's my purpose, and I've had time to digest about that.
Yeah.
Yes.
It's something you've thought about always.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
Beautiful.
Yes.
So this is the opportunity here to ask your next guest, our next guest, a question, and take some time and think about it. And once you're ready, you can write it over here. Yeah. Man, thank you very much, Saya, for making this possible. Taking the time to host me in your home, but also allow us to host you on the Couch Connect. I think this episode has been very inspirational, very eye-opening. I think I've learned a lot, even for my own self and for my own sake. And I think that the folks are going to enjoy this episode. Before we finish off here, I'm going to ask you one last question. Is there anything that you probably wanted to say at some point, or something that you've thought of saying, and I haven't given you the opportunity to say it, or haven't framed questions in such a way that that could be said? So this is the opportunity for you to say it.
Christianity works. It is intellectually very rigorous. It is experientially very relevant. And the gospel is not just a set of concepts. It's powerful. When you put God first and then implement your human duty, which normally is hard work, God crowns success. And I've been a man of science, and I've been a man of faith, and true science and true faith don't contradict. But often the case is that true faith are those that have been misrepresented or has been found so difficult and left untried, rather than being tried and being found wanting. And this is important, especially in a world where people want to jettison all claims to truth. The end result is a lot of the problems we're finding ourselves in. And if we can reclaim that, a lot of the struggles we are having, either with primitive accumulation, the crisis of loneliness, the struggles with self-identity, the emptiness people are living through, the cruelty that is now being misbranded as masculinity, the hostility that is being seen as being femininity, I think will dissipate. And we can be able to become better humans and more effective. I trust in God, not because I'm indoctrinated, but I trust in God because even after applying the tools of science and of experience, I find him to be powerful true, relevant, and applicable. And I strongly recommend him. That's all the things I would think.
Man, you are very deep. And it is beautiful. I wonder what it would take someone to become as deep as you are. I mean, you've painted the picture here for us, from the roots to, everything that you've gone through to who you've become. But I think it's a really beautiful experience sitting in front of you and listening to you.
Mm-hmm.
And I hope that, watching this or listening to this, wherever you are, you've been blessed and inspired too. If you've made it this far, I think it's because you did like this episode. So I do encourage you to subscribe to this podcast and do like this episode and share this with your friends, and remember to tell them to tell their friends. And if you haven't yet, I'm still going to encourage you to go over to books.by/Saya Jackson and buy Saya's latest book, The In-Between. And very soon, the second edition of When the Grass is Greener on the Other Side is also going to be available over there. So you can head over there and do buy the book. Till next time, do take care. My name is Joab. I've been hanging out with Saya Jackson today, and this has been the Couch Connect. Kwaheri.